It's just me. Welcome to Jeff Everyman's stream, or Finding My God. I'm not sure which one it is yet. I am not sure what's happening, why I am the one on screen, but I am the one on screen. Everyone can see and hear you. Yes. Yep. Hey, Jeff. What's going on, man?
Okay, that was weird.
That was weird.
Just kicked me right out. I was like, I got hacked.
Yeah, I was like, well, hey, I am now Jeff Everyman. I have taken your position. I have assumed your form. I am the T-1000.
You don't want to be me.
Right. I am fine just being myself. I don't really want to be anybody.
All right, before we get into it, tell me a little bit more about Nick Fuentes, because should I actually pay a little more attention to what he has to say, or is he just kind of a kook?
Well, Nick Fuentes is, he's gaining influence over the young dudes in this country for sure. Some people think that all of his engagement is from like India or other countries, like a lot of Muslim countries. Because I do think Muslims like him generally. I think if you're hardline on Jews, as Nick Fuentes is, he doesn't like the Jews too much. He's not too much of a fan of the Jews.
The Jews.
Yeah. You get that kind of audience, but I was just saying, like, it's going to become an issue, where it's crazy because it's like this rise of anti-Semitism where we thought we had defeated this, but if you don't constantly refresh the arguments, if you don't understand your history, if you don't understand the meaning behind things, then you get it. He's a hardline Catholic. He wants a Catholic theocracy for the United States, which I'm vehemently opposed to. He wants people to learn the Bible through other people. So he doesn't like the fact that people can interpret the Bible for themselves, which he believes leads to like gay churches or the Protestant Reformation and all this other stuff, like all these denominations, which I guess he's kind of right that it leads to different denominations, but also I wouldn't say that just being part of a different denomination is worthy of damnation necessarily. He's economically, he can kind of swing either way. His biggest thing is like race realism. Like he just wants, like, I guess so, like technically white nationalism, but it's not necessarily white nationalism because he doesn't want to get rid of the black people. But he wants to throw a lot of black people in jail, specifically, like if you're watching Piers Morgan, he was saying like he wants to throw all the criminal blacks in jail. What
about criminal white people? Do they go to jail too, or no?
Yeah, they go to jail too. I would think. I would hope. If he wants to stay consistent. But yeah, no, Nick Fuentes is he's a character. He's very charismatic and he's funny too. But he's also very edgy. So think COD lobby in 2005. That's the kind of edge. But he is charismatic, and I see why people watch him. Like, he is entertaining. Like, if you watch his stream, you're gonna laugh at something. Something he says is gonna make you laugh. And
that's a little dangerous.
It is a little dangerous. That
makes him dangerous. Yeah,
it makes him dangerous, right? Being charismatic and being entertaining. He's a self-proclaimed incel. Or a volcel, voluntarily celibate, because he doesn't believe in sex till marriage, and he's not married, but he's 26, doesn't have a girlfriend. I don't know why. Some people think he's gay. I haven't seen him be gay, so I have no reason to believe he is gay.
I haven't seen him be gay.
Yeah.
Nick Fuentes sex tape incoming.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me. The idea that, and especially this day and age, that people shouldn't read the Bible for themselves because they could possibly come up with their own interpretations. To me, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. you can't truly believe unless you can come to grips and understand something yourself. So, I mean, that just makes a bunch of drones that don't actually believe in the religion that they're following, in my opinion, anyway.
No, I agree. I mean, it also leaves it open to corruption majorly. That's my biggest worry, actually, is
Yeah, 100%.
like if you're just, getting your information from a higher individual and status or whatever, and you're not allowed to ever think for yourself. And what if they're wrong? Like
Yeah,
it's
they have
never.
a word for that. It's called cult.
Yeah, I know, right? Exactly. Yeah, no, the Catholic Church. No offense to any Catholics. That's
One thing
what it used to be.
now, as far as the whole anti-Semitism thing, and I'm not sure if me and you talked about this on Discord before or not, I have a hard time figuring out why you can't criticize Israel as a nation on the world stage without being called an Semite. I mean, you're criticizing a country and their politics and their actions on the world stage, but you instantly get called an anti-Semite. I think there's a separation between those two.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, like Israel does things. I'm a huge Zionist shill. All right, so I'm about to earn my $7,000 right now as I promote Israel. But like, I think there's a lot of things Israel does that's worth criticism, especially as a Christian. Like they still have abortion. They have a lot of issues that the West also shares. Like, as far as I'm aware, Israel's kind of like little America. They all have the same problems we're having. They're very westernized in their thinking. They have the Knesset, which is kind of like Congress. They have democracy in the sense that they're voting in representatives. They're suffering all the same issues we have. And they also have an incredible spy agency with Mossad, which, with our own intelligence agencies, that's, like the NSA and all this other problem. So there's a lot to criticize, but, it's a government, and every government is worthy of criticism. There's no government on earth that's been like, perfect. Like, hey, let's just have this government that is totally free of corruption, and like, show me that. Right. And,
are you so supportive because of your religious beliefs, because they're the chosen people or whatever?
Well, Jesus isn't coming back to America. You know what I mean? He's coming.
How do you know?
Because in the Bible, it says he's not coming back to America. Like, it doesn't say he's coming back to America. He's coming back to Israel when he comes back.
Right. He's got a landing point.
Yeah.
When the earth splits and all that stuff. He's got a landing point, but that doesn't mean you're not going to get to see him.
Well, yeah, I know. We've got technology. He'll be on TV for sure. I'll be able to watch Jesus on YouTube.
Does the internet stay up when that happens?
I think so. I think if I remember correctly, I think there's a verse about in the end days, like people will think that time is just going to go on as normal, and it's actually not going to do that. So I would assume that infrastructure isn't failing, that things feel very normal, although we have this oddity of this one guy proclaiming to be God.
We have that now.
Yeah, I know, but it'll be like more significant, I guess. So yeah, I mean,
yeah, that'll be interesting. I don't think we're going to see that, but that's an interesting thing to think about, the reality of that,
Yeah, it is. So as far as supporting Israel, I always try to look at so anything that's like a sin in the Bible, I try to see if there's like a real world consequence to that. Like, if the Bible is true and sin is a thing to avoid for your own benefit, like what is the real world consequence of avoiding sin? And I also do this for things that aren't sin, right? Like, so like supporting Israel, like what is the real world benefit to supporting Israel? Well, I think America is pretty great, and I think Israel is like America. Like, if I were to move to a foreign country, I would think that Israel would probably be closest to what I feel America is. They have free speech over there. Before October 7th, they had massive protests against Netanyahu, right? Like they're allowed to actually criticize their leaders, which is
Right, but he's still in.
He is
Didn't
still
he
in.
actually like enact a thing kind of like what's his face did in Ukraine, where it's like, okay, elections aren't happening right now.
Yeah, I know, and you can criticize that all day. Like
Yeah.
that's totally fine. But as far as supporting the state of Israel, yeah, I do support the state of Israel for religious and non-religious reasons. The other
Gotcha.
thing is when you're Israel, you know, we've the Jews have been kicked out of like 109 different countries. So it seems to me that the fact that they haven't been eradicated, even though there's been multiple attempts to do so by even the Christian, quote unquote, Christian church. I wouldn't say it's the Christian thing to kill Jews, but the Templars back in the day, the Muslims back in the day, you know, it wasn't just the Holocaust that they suffered through. They suffered through a lot of mini Holocausts, I guess you could say,
Right.
of from different countries and demonization from other things, which is like why like Zionism even exists, right? Like was it Herschel Walker or whatever his name? What is his name? Herzl? Whatever. He was an atheist. He wasn't even like a religious Jew. He just realized that Jews ethnically, culturally, are discriminated against in a negative way, and that they need to find their own homeland. But there has been Jews in Palestine, what was called Palestine. It used to be called Israel. Rome took over, named it Palestina, and then there's Jews still there from forever ago, as well as Philistines, which is where we get the name Palestine from. It was named that way to mock Israel, essentially, because Philistines were their big enemy. So yeah, I support Israel based on my religion, but I also see the non-religious reason to also support Israel.
As far as just an island of democracy in the Middle East, is that what you mean?
Yeah, where they're not brutal dictators. You know, they're
Right.
not killing people for just being gay, or, you know, they're not killing people for having premarital sex. I mean, that's what'll happen. You know, you go to the countries around Israel and, you know, you don't have such a good time doing all that.
Right.
Maybe Egypt is probably like more of a liberal minded society as far as the Muslim countries go, but outside of Egypt, it would be not a good time.
Right. Well, I guess that like the persecution of the Jews over past couple thousand years, I guess that kind of segues into what this is supposed to be about. Do you think that it's possible, or is that kind of one of the theories that comes from evil intention by Satan or whatever? Do you think that's like an outside evil force that is kind of pointing people at the Jews for persecution, or is that just, where do you think that comes from?
When it comes to the Jews specifically, I think so. Not to say that everyone who hates Jews or is an anti-Semite is possessed by a demon or something like that, but I do think that those movements are at the top levels influenced by demons. Absolutely. I think so, because if the Jews get wiped out, then, you know, you can just put Christianity to rest, just lock away your Bible, you don't need it anymore. If Jews get completely wiped out, the Bible is false. Because they have to be around.
Right.
True. Because
Right.
the fulfillment of the Gentiles will lead to the fulfillment of the Jews, which is conversion, essentially. So if there's no Jews around, which a lot of these anti-Semites, surprisingly, like they'll claim to be Christian. I don't know if I would agree with being Christian and also an anti-Semite, because you're really not supposed to hate people in general.
Right.
But a lot of these anti-Semites will say, oh, well, they're not real Jews. It's like, well, where are the real Jews then? Because if there's no Jews, they'll say they're like Frankists. Like Candace Owens will call them Frankists or whatever, and say they're like Eastern European or whatever. But if there's no Jews around, then where are the Jews? Like, then if there's no Jews, they're not real Jews, and no Jews actually exist, then just burn your Bible, I guess. Just throw it in the trash, because it's over.
Well, there is the conundrum of differentiating between Jews ethnically and religiously, because there are ethnic Jews who are Christians or other religions who aren't practicing Judaism. So I guess that's another factor to consider. So you believe in actual demonic possession. You believe in an outside evil is an outside force, and that can influence the actions of human beings.
Yeah, I think it could register as, it can range from just like slight influence, and you're not even possessed. Like, you could just be your normal self, and then you get an idea that seems like an idea of yours, but it's not really yours. Maybe people would call it intrusive thoughts, but maybe they're not as insane as the intrusive thoughts seem to be, right? Like, intrusive thoughts are things like you're on a boat and there's a baby next to you and you're like, I should shove it into the ocean. That's like that's an intrusive thought, right? Like,
right.
But maybe it doesn't have to seem so extreme as that. Maybe it could be more subtle and a little bit more insidious in that way, where you're just, maybe you just have a thought that angers you about something someone did and puts it in a new light, or maybe makes you perceive something that someone didn't intend towards you, and now that's created strife, that's created anger. It's not a good situation. But then it can also go into just straight up demonic possession, where you're bending over backwards, your back's in half and crawling up walls, kind of thing.
Right. Well, let's get into what you were talking about with your church, because I think, like, exorcism, pretty much everybody just associates that to Catholics. There's actually a running joke on why is it only Catholics get possessed by demons. Talk a little bit about that with your church. Now, I mean, you said that there was a case where the congregation was actually like surrounding a woman and praying for her and stuff like that. How often is it in your church where it's like, yeah, this person's possessed, we're doing an exorcism for him? Is that like something that's just happened once or twice while you've been at your particular church, or is that something that's, happened often?
It's happened a few times. It doesn't happen like super often or anything like that. There's kind of an idea that's like being debated in Protestantism, I guess, among those who actually believe you can be demon possessed, whether Christians can be possessed or not, which I thought that was like settled science. I thought that was not a thing. So there's this idea that perhaps Christians can have demons living inside them, and I'm not really sure if I agree with that or not. So, it doesn't typically happen at my church. Like, it's not like an everyday occurrence. It's not even a weekly occurrence. It's not even a monthly occurrence. But there were certain things where it was like, people gathered around and prayed for certain individuals, and they started manifesting in weird ways. And, I'm sure, you've heard the stories where people get crazy. They start screaming, saying insane things, drooling.
Yeah, some of that weird stuff. The interesting ones are when they supposedly say things that they have couldn't have possibly known, about people in the room or just about other things. I don't think I believe in demonic possession, but I'm not completely closed off to the idea. My whole search here on trying to figure out, I mean, you go to ChatGPT and ask if evil's real, and it'll tell you that the general consensus is evil is just a total privation of good. That evil is from a complete lack of moral good, which makes sense. But then on the other hand, for me, when you consider the fact that human beings and evil seems contained to just human beings, that our animal brain, pretty much everything we do that you could consider uninfluenced by someone else, is about survival, personal survival. That's why we gather in groups and things like that. to me, some of the cases you see of serial killers or just torture in general, that's a case where someone is spending a great amount of time and energy towards just being sadistic or just inflicting pain. And you don't always see, like, you can say someone is mentally ill and they're getting some sort of pleasure from that. But there have been, I mean, you look at the Holocaust and stuff like that, there's easier ways to kill people than some of the ways they did, you know. To me, that is an expenditure of a lot of resources with no benefit to survival. Actually, you consider the way society's been for thousands of years, it goes directly against personal survival. You do a bunch of evil shit, eventually it's going to come back on you and end your survival. So I've been trying to kind of balance that out. You know, I understand that most of these cases are just like a mental illness, but it seems like some of them, it's not something some would do if they want to further themselves or better themselves or survive. So it's kind of a tough thing to figure out. And I think this has been debated for who knows how long. Do you see the evil influence as being, you know, purely religious theory like Satan? And where do demons come from? I mean, obviously it's not. People say they're possessed and they're possessed by this demon that uses this name, and they have these huge maps of all the different demons and stuff like that I haven't found any mention of, like in the Bible. So I'm not sure where that comes from. Where does that come from as far as the identities of all these different demons?
So the identities thing, I'm kind of familiar with that a little bit. Like, you'll hear people talk about like Leviathan and like ocean spirits and water spirits and stuff like that. And then like the different kinds of demons. I think the traditional belief is that they are disembodied spirits of Nephilim. So Nephilim were a result of fallen angels mating with humans, and the offspring were Nephilim. So that would be like Goliath being a giant.
Right. The men of great renown.
Yeah, huge dudes. And the Nephilim, after they passed, they're not humans. Their souls are not human souls. Their spirit is not a human spirit, and it's not an angel's spirit. I guess if angels have spirits, that's a different conversation, I guess. But they're a corrupted spirit, and so they would, you know, physically die but stick around because they're not going to hell or heaven or anything. I think that's the traditional view. I don't think people personally deal with the devil. This is in my view. Like, some people make the devil out to be like omnipresent or like almost omniscient as well. Like, oh, today I'm really dealing with the devil. It's like, are you dealing with the devil, or is you're just having a bad day because of other humans, or are you actually dealing with a demonic spirit, or are you actually dealing with the devil? And I would say that the people who are actually dealing with the devil would probably be people like world leaders, and then everyone else, us average Joes, are either dealing with humans who have different ideas that may not even necessarily be demonically influenced. Perhaps it's just their own will. And then at the same time, it could be just dealing with demonic influence.
Right. On the subject of the devil, just as a common misconception, I think, biblically, the devil isn't sitting on a throne in hell, right? The devil walks the earth, biblically.
Yeah, like he owns the earth, basically.
Right.
This is his domain.
Right. That's my understanding that I'm getting from it, is the devil wasn't put in a pit of hell. He is walking the earth and had professed to basically be doing it to screw with humans. Like, while he's on the earth, he's here to screw with humans. That's what I've gotten from the Bible. Yeah, from my understanding, the pit of hell doesn't really come along till Revelations, when he gets cast into the lake of fire or whatever.
Yeah, the only people that are locked away would be the fallen angels. those would be the only ones, the ones who I guess created the Nephilim. And if you go into like the Book of Enoch, it gets a little bit interesting, but people debate whether that's like a source you should trust or not.
Yeah, I've been saving that. I've seen so many videos where it's been brought up. I've kind of been saving that little tidbit for
Oh,
myself.
it's really interesting stuff. If
So,
that if it's not biblical, like some people take it as like a book of history. It's not like biblical canon. They don't want it to be biblical canon. They just take it as like a historical piece. Like this is documentation of history that gets a little bit more serious than other pieces of history in
right.
terms of spiritual revelation and stuff like that.
I have seen like drawings of the descriptions of angels from the Book of Enoch, and they look absolutely crazy. Like a
Like
super,
multi-eyed,
yeah, like a super
feathery.
creative person was on DMT and came up with these. I mean, they're very creative, but when you think about it, people are like, no, there's no way an angel looks like that. Why not? I mean, we know that goes to the problem where people automatically just associate God and angels with looking like us, because
Yeah.
it says in Genesis and our likeness and all that stuff. But I think that's just kind of a natural association for people to see God as the bearded man sitting on the throne in heaven, and the angels look like people with wings. That's just how our minds work. But yeah, who's to say that that's not really what an angel looks like?
Yeah, I think that's a fair thing to think. Like, just because, I mean, the Bible talks about the descriptions of certain like celestial beings. We'll say, we'll not call them all angels, and they've got like the head of like a lion and like a goat and like a bear and like all this other stuff. And it's like that stuff was existing prior to the creation of humanity and like all the animals. So real life is like a reflection, or our world is like a reflection of some of what existed prior, I guess you could say, in Christendom. But it is wild. I mean, there are some really wild descriptions even in the Bible, not just in the Enoch. It's absolutely like nutters whenever you start really reading it, and like the council that surrounds God and all this other stuff. It is pretty nuts.
Yeah, I'm
It's like,
still
why does
working on
God
the
need a
council thing, right? I'm still working on the council thing.
Yeah. So it
Again, I
is.
think that's, I mean, we sort of, that's how we understand things. Humans immediately start rationing things out. Like, I want to understand this, I want to believe it, but you have to kind of throw your own experiences and points of reference into something in order to understand it. So I think that may be where the whole council thing's coming from. I'm not sure. I'm still working on it. I'm still working on a lot of things.
Yeah, I think that things are not as set in stone as people tend to believe they are. They think like, essentially, I think some people think that everything is God's will without thinking everything is God's will still. And really what I think the Bible clarifies is that like existence is kind of a battle. It's a spirit, they call it spiritual warfare, right? But it is warfare, and there are casualties in war. And so not everything turns out exactly as you would have hoped, It is a literal war. It is not a one-sided domination where, you have Goliath pummeling a 3-year-old or something.
Right.
That isn't how it seems to be under Christian doctrine. Like, if you really dig deep into the Bible, it really is a war. Like the Prince of Persia, or the Principality of Persia, fought with an angel, and delayed his duty. Like his message that he was supposed to send got delayed because he was actually fighting demons, like literal demons. And so it's like, well, if that guy who is like in it, right, in the Bible, like he's fighting literal demons, is having their mission be delayed because of a demon, then how is this not happening like all the time? I'm sure
Right.
I'm sure angels go on more than one mission, right? They don't just do one thing. and then we write about it in the Bible, and that's all that he ever did, you know? So I think it really is a lot more chaotic. I think Christian is a chaos religion. Like Christianity is a religion of chaos. And things are not really as set in stone as people would think they are. I mean, there's prophecy, there's like biblical prophecy and stuff, but when it comes to dealing with evil, I think the evil is really like, people see evil as chaos, but I think in reality, like, chaos is the default on either side. And I would actually say that evil is like stillness, really, order, because you always have people seeking out order, and people will do a lot for order. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
look at, we were talking about Nick Fuentes earlier. Under Nick, I don't know if everything he wants an order, but I would say some of the things he wants is evil, and you can get order out of that, but it's an unbalanced order. Whereas balance is really two things that are opposing, weighed equally against each other.
Right.
And we kind of have to have a balance of chaos and order. Anyways, sorry, we were talking about evil, and I was just like,
No, you're still there, because that is part of the whole conversation of the problem of evil. Is if God is omniscient and omnibenevolent, all loving, that's where people default to when they talk about why is there evil, why is there suffering in the world, and evil is automatically equated to, or suffering is automatically equated to evil, and I don't think that is accurate, because there's no evil in nature, but there's suffering in nature. I don't know if you watch Alex O'Connor. One of his arguments, he's super sharp guy, but was an atheist. Now he's more agnostic, or admits, which most atheists are agnostic. It's just not as cool a name, I guess. But anyway, one of his examples is a deer is in the woods, tree falls on the deer, doesn't kill it instantly, it has to lay there and suffer to death, and he calls that evil. And I think that's just simple natural law. I mean, animals have to die, be it from predators or whatever, otherwise the earth would be covered with animals, yada yada. Well, who's to say that
is it
they
the
should just
suffering that makes it
Oliver
evil?
did?
Or
That's
is it the
that
death that makes it evil?
It's the suffering that makes it evil. That's what I'm saying. Most people equate suffering to evil, and I don't think that there's necessarily a direct connection there. I mean, obviously, inflicted suffering, intentionally inflicted suffering, would be called evil, but I don't think all suffering is evil.
Right. Well, the problem I have with that, I guess, is like, then if you have some loner who has no family, no friends, if you just kill him without pain, like if you just one tap to the head or lethal injection or something, and he didn't do anything to deserve it, right? It's not like a self-defense situation. Is that he didn't suffer, right?
Right. Yeah. You can't just. You're exactly right, dude.
And
you can't just
there's
leave
no one
that
around
to
to
that.
miss him. Like no one's gonna know he's gone. Is that evil to kill that dude? I'd say yeah.
Yeah,
I would say it's actually the most
right.
insidious thing. You killed a loner, like you killed someone who could have used a friend.
Right.
I would say that's actually worse. Almost is what it feels like to me. If you kill someone who's already suffering, and not giving them a loving experience on this earth, instead you just kill them, and that was the last experience they had. I would say that's far more evil, actually.
Yeah, that's evil without suffering.
Yeah,
because like you said, if this guy is completely separate from anybody, nobody's missing him, so they're not suffering.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you think that people are capable of doing what we would consider evil acts without
demonic influence?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. So I think people generally look at evil as like what produces death, and whatever produces death is evil. And I think that's actually, you look at the political debates going on these days, and it's about death. It's all about death. Everything politically is about death. Like, why do people support transgender rights? Well, they believe it's because if they don't have those rights, they're going to end up killing themselves, or like as a mental illness.
Right.
The reason people want illegals deported is because not necessarily that every single person who came here illegally is a dangerous criminal, but they could be a dangerous criminal, and that would lead to more death. So we're going to get rid of those people. Like, it's everything. Every policy is about death and living life and what people's thoughts are that leads to death. Likewise, we have a different kind of society in the West than like in the East. We have a guilt society. We have a society that the individual is so endowed with so many different morals that they feel guilt. So when you feel guilt, you're feeling guilty because you did something wrong, and you're trying to contend with that, and you might lead you to do something like not do it again, or go apologize to the people you hurt, or whatever. But in the East, they don't have a guilt-based society. They have a shame-based society, which is a little different. Shame is external. It's
Right.
it's putting your family to shame. So, for example, in a shame-based society, you might not say like your son is gay in a shame-based society where they don't like homosexuals, because that will reflect poorly on your father. And if the father is reflected poorly on him, he might not be able to work. So now you're just keeping this kid in the closet, or worse, they're doing killings. They're killing him because if he doesn't, he's going to have trouble. And then like, was it good to do that? Like you've got a gay son, you raised a gay son, so shame on you. We won't hire you. We won't do anything. And you just are ostracized from the rest of the community. That's a shame-based society. And that leads people to do evil things like killing their own sons, killing their own daughters. And was that demonic? I mean, I guess you could say it is, I guess, but it also could be the result of people going to the extremes in order to maintain something. Like, let's say you just have one gay son, right? And you've got 5 kids. Now you can't work, so you can't feed the other 4 because this one son has ruined it for you in that society. So now you're making this decision of like, do I sacrifice this son to feed the other 4? Like, is that a demonic thought? I mean,
Yeah,
was it
where's
like
the
a
evil
human
coming
thought?
from? Is it coming
know what I
from the
mean?
society that is not, well, forcing or influencing them to do evil acts, or is it coming from the person itself?
Right. And so there's different things that could impact people doing evil stuff that are natural human desires, right? You want to care for your kids, but if something threatens 4 out of the 5, is that necessarily like a demonic thought? I don't know. I'm not saying
Yeah,
it is or
I think
isn't.
there are other options. Move.
There definitely are other options, like not killing your own kid. I agree.
Yeah. Pack up the car.
But I'm very anti-abortion. But is it? I think a lot of women, when they go get an abortion, don't know that they're. I don't think it's necessarily demonic influence. I mean, we can say it's demonic influence in the sense that they believe that they're not killing someone, but
I would
if they
say
really
that's just human rationalization.
right, it could be human rationalization. Like, this is going to make my life harder. This is going to be tough. I've got a career ahead of me. I've got school. I haven't even gotten married yet in some cases, or whatever the reason is. Is that person demonically possessed? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Not,
I
not in
think
most
we
cases.
can talk ourselves into just about anything.
Yeah, exactly.
People can justify just about anything.
Yeah. But at the same time, there's also other thoughts that could be demonic. I don't really like this story because it doesn't have a happy ending. But there was a woman at my church, and she was a NASA engineer. She's a smart person.
Mhm.
She's not She's not retarded. She's not stupid. And I never really talked to her, but I would go up to the altar and she'd be like right behind me every Sunday. And so, you know, I never really spoke to her, but she developed cancer, and she had this thought that she was just going to trust God to heal her cancer. As I didn't know her, I didn't, you know, it was very treatable too. It was like a very treatable form of breast cancer.
Right.
Like there was no need. You could have just gone to the doctor, done what they said, and you'd be cancer free right now. But she said, I'm just going to trust God to take care of the cancer. And that isn't like, God didn't tell her that, as far as I'm aware. She doesn't believe God told her that. She just put it on God, like, hey, God, you're going to take care of me. It's like, wait a second. You know, maybe sometimes we have technology and medicine as developed as it is, so that you don't have to necessarily, you don't need to. Just go do it, you know?
Right.
Go do the thing that'll make you feel better, you know? You can't just like trust, you can't just stop eating and say, okay, God, make sure I don't starve, you know? Just
Right.
magically fill my stomach with food, you know? It's not even what he did with the Israelites when they were wandering around in the desert, right? Manna came from heaven, or they say it came from heaven, it came from these birds. And so it's like God gave them food. He didn't just magically make it appear in their stomach, you know, and they just didn't starve. No, they still had to eat. You still have to eat. And so she just believed God was going to heal her. And
Right.
they had I don't know if it was an exorcism, but they definitely prayed the demon of suicide out of her life, because she was dying, and she ended up dying because she refused treatment the entire time. And literally on her deathbed, she's like, God's going to heal me. And I'm like, no, that is not the case. That did not happen. And it's like, it was very upsetting to me at the time, because I was like, this is a woman who goes to my church, you know, this is like someone I know. Like, I don't know them. I've never really held a conversation, but I'd see them all the time. And for them to hold this idea that ultimately led to their death, I feel like that was a demonic idea.
Right. That's what I was getting ready to ask you. What's the religion where they 100% refuse to get medical treatment? It's the one where people have been like sued and charged because I'm not sure.
I'm not really
but
sure.
They'll let their own children die without taking them to a hospital. You know, even when medical treatment is available, they just 100% believe in faith healing.
I'm not sure. I do know what you're talking about. Yeah.
By the way, if you're watching, at the top of each chat, YouTube and Twitch, there's a link if you want to join us on stream and participate in the conversation. Be glad to have you up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know. I've heard of that. I don't know what it is. I'm pretty sure it's a minority, probably because they keep dying out. But you know, it's like
the actual like logic behind that is what's funnier than the joke.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Like, you know, you can only do that for so long. You know, especially in modern society.
You'd have to like reproduce a lot to, you know, make up for the losses because somebody got the flu.
Yeah, had 7 kids. 7 kids, 4 died. All right, we got 3 left. We're in the green. We're positive KD right now.
Crazy to me. I mean, yeah. Do you think that is?
Yeah, I would say letting
influence
someone die
of evil
unnecessarily is demonic. Yeah.
In the core of their religion, there's been, you know, the devil snuck in and swap some sentences around, and they're convinced that going to the doctor to get some antibiotics is somehow sinful. The idea of that to me is crazy.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I've got a friend who's really into healing, and he's a missionary actually in Thailand, and people do get healed, but we have different ideas on it, and he doesn't really necessarily like my idea, but I don't think he's not as extreme as that, right? So like his idea is that God will heal everyone, and my idea is observable reality that God does not heal everyone. And he's like, well, God wants to heal everyone, you just need more faith. And I'm like, well, I don't think so. I don't believe in the just lacked faith argument. I don't find that that plausible. I don't find it's like, okay, you're making a judgment of someone's level of faith without being able to actually see that.
Yeah, and if he's Christian, he is putting limits on God. God wants to do this. If God wants to do that, then he could do it regardless of their faith.
Well, no, I wouldn't say it's so much limiting God as much as demanding from God. Like God is your machine that you can just use at any time. I would say.
Well, it sounds like he's putting the demand on the people. The reason God didn't heal you is because your faith isn't strong enough.
Yeah, that too. But if your faith is strong enough, you can just make demands of God. And
yeah, I don't go that way.
yeah, I don't believe that either. And so, I mean, I believe he's a Christian. I believe he's saved, right? Like I'm going to be neighbors with him in heaven or whatever. But, you know, like we disagree on this because as I see it, not everyone does get healed. And we could talk about that being evil. I don't think it is necessarily evil, but I think it might be misguided because, again, we're talking about the perception is that evil is everything that leads to death, essentially. And if it's leading to death, but he's reasonable about it. So, like, he's saying, like, if you don't get healed, and you should go to the doctor. Like, he's reasonable about it, right? Like, he's not going to encourage anyone not to go to the doctor. Or say that going to the doctor is a lack of faith.
Right.
That would be really stupid. Like, we would
end up... that sounds more like fear of a lawsuit.
Well, I don't know. I don't think these people are getting sued. These people that are saying, you know, don't go to the doctor and all this other stuff, I don't think they're... Well, there have been parents who've been charged with negligence and all that because they let their child die because of their religious beliefs. They didn't take him to the hospital. Yes, I have seen that. The parents specifically, but like also like he's encouraging this more than just like for kids. He's encouraging this for parents. Like if you are not getting better, you need to go to the hospital or see
right.
You know what I mean?
I'm not sure where the idea that medicine couldn't be from God. You know, I don't understand the idea that being healed by another human being is somehow evil or whatever.
Well, there's a lot of people that take the word pharmaceutical and they go to the root word in Greek, which is pharmakia, which means sorcery or witchcraft, or the use of drugs / potions, often with harmful intent. And so when you look at it that way, there's some people that convince themselves all medicine is bad, which I do know some people like that, but you know, they're good people. They just believe that medicine is demonic,
right?
Which is hard for me to cope with because I don't believe that. So you know, like I know I have one, I guess they're friends, you know, they're family friends for me, and I don't think they like that I'm dealing with peptides a lot. You know, I think their peptides are awesome, and they're like,
you're a witch.
Yeah, well, they don't think I'm a witch or anything, or I don't think they think I'm a witch. Maybe they think I'm a warlock.
You're a pagan shaman.
We got to get our gender roles right here, man. This is 2025. Right. I'm a warlock, dude.
You're a wizard, Harry.
Yeah, I'm a wizard. But I don't understand that part of Christianity. I think there's a lot of deception in the church, and I would say that is demonic. I think there's a lot of false prophets. as well. Like when we're talking about evil, you look
Mhm.
at some of these prosperity preachers, give me all your money and God will bless you like 10 times over or whatever.
Right. Well, I mean, that can just be attributed to human greed. I don't
Yeah,
think there's an influence there. I think people will
I mean,
leverage just about anything for their own gain, for their personal gain.
yeah, but the thing about it is it's insidious because the only time Jesus recommends you kill yourself is when he's talking about the children and leading them astray. He says it's better for you to tie a millstone around your neck and toss yourself into the ocean. And that verse is commonly interpreted as if you're leading people away from God, like intentionally, kill
Right.
yourself. It's better that you just kill yourself.
Right. Yeah, that was kind
And
of the idea behind that video that I did on the responsibility of spiritual leadership, who's a bigger
yeah,
sinner, someone that sins or someone who leads multitudes of people to sin.
yeah. And so if you're a pastor and you're saying, yeah, it could be greed, but also you are hurting people and you're using it under the name of Jesus, which is blasphemy. Like you are using, that is
Right.
the definition of using God's name in vain, that you are using God's name in order
Yes.
for something he would never support or ever supported. And saying, well, I need a new Tesla or I need a new Bugatti or something. And, having the church donate all their money to you, it's that, and those people, I mean, because the prosperity gospel is ultimately false, those people are not, majority of those people are not getting rich. They're not getting money. They're being hurt by the church, essentially, and they turn away from God because people ruined it. And at that point, I mean, I'm just going to let Jesus's words be Jesus's words. I'm not going to add to them, but I would say that's pretty evil, because we're talking about, like, there's this thing we're talking about death, right, and evil. There's a guy named Kirk Cameron, and he was in the Left Behind movies. Kirk Cameron,
I know who he is.
yeah, and he recently got a lot of attention on social media from a bunch of Christians because he believes in annihilationism, which is the idea that in the end of days, instead of suffering forever in hell, you're actually just annihilated into non-existence, which is certainly a take, but I wouldn't say it's something that's like, it's so damning of his soul that he's going to go to hell or whatever. There's a lot of theological flexibility, I think, within Christianity that you could take that you're not losing your soul over, right? Like,
Right. Well, I don't
um,
necessarily disagree with him. Just from my study of the Bible, it seems to me that the only real description of hell in the Bible is you'll be separated from God. You don't get eternal life.
right. And what is the
So,
opposite of eternal life? You know what I mean? If
death,
you're not living forever,
annihilation.
right? Exactly. And that's kind of where he's coming from. And so, you know,
That
yeah,
makes sense to me.
yeah. And so I don't blame people for believing that. I'm uncertain on the topic as well. My pastor believes that it is total suffering forever. And before he said that, I was like, I'll have to discuss it more with him. But before he said that, I was kind of like leaning towards annihilationism because I was like, if going to hell is considered the second death, then the first death is your spirit separating from your body, and the second death is your spirit separating from God. And what
Right.
happens when you lose your, when the first death you separate from your body, you separate from God. So I don't know. It just seems like annihilationism makes sense, but also I don't think it's not going to encourage or deter anyone from Jesus. Right? Like I don't, whatever you believe on it.
Well, I don't know, for the church. I mean, our church, well, all churches have always had that aspect of control. A lot of the whole base idea of religions is the punishment reward thing. So for the church to say that you just don't get eternal life, maybe that's not enough of a deterrent for people, as it's definitely not the same as saying you don't just poof, you go and suffer in hell fire for all of eternity, that is a much larger deterrent than to just say you don't get to participate in eternal life. To me, that's most people's idea of hell came from what is it with the different hells? Dante. That's where
Dante's Inferno.
yeah, that's where most people's idea of hell came from. But yeah, to me, I mean, that is still a deterrent that you don't get that you die. I mean, that still plays to our fear of death, our fear of our own mortality. But the idea that you will actually suffer horribly for eternity is a much bigger deterrent, I would say. But I guess it depends on what God you believe in, because if you believe in the God that loves us, that sees us as his children, even when you punish your own child, it's a small punishment. If your child lies to you, you don't beat them for eternity until they die. You know what I mean? So if you believe in a God that does love us all and see us as our children, but eventually has to say, you know, I never knew you, I still don't see a God like that saying you are going to suffer eternally. You know, it makes more sense that you're separated from God and you have that spiritual death where you just don't exist anymore. To me, that makes more sense if you believe in that God. Some people say, no, God doesn't love everybody and yada yada. I guess it just depends on the God that you worship, that you believe in.
Yeah, I would say that I don't see it as like a matter of salvation. So like it's entertaining to think about for me. When you're talking about it being a deterrent, I don't think deterrents work for religion, because like the deterrent is in life. The deterrent is like if you lie a bunch, your life starts becoming miserable. That's a deterrent. You know what I mean? Like sin naturally deters you from doing sin if you can be brave enough to embrace it. So if you just start telling lies to your family and your friends about things, it's going to push back on you in a negative way.
Eventually,
you know what I mean? Yeah, it's going to catch up to you. And so deterrence, the other thing is, I don't think people should follow a religion based on deterrent. Like, I don't, when people fall away from Christianity, it's not because they're afraid they're going to hell. They're not afraid of hell at that point.
right?
You know what I mean? They don't believe it. And so if they don't believe it, then they just don't believe it. So
Right.
like,
Well, I mean, you sort of made my point there a little bit. If they don't believe it, they no longer have that deterrent, and they just
right,
fall away from Christianity. I mean, to
right.
me, that's like the major drive for people in religion, in Christianity, is I got to get my life right, otherwise later on something bad's going to happen. To me, that's what most of it is the fear of punishment and being shown the path to avoid that punishment. Like if someone says, don't touch the stove because it's hot, if you do touch the stove, you're going to burn your hand. That to me, that's religion, is a lot of that, the don't touch the stove because it's hot, with all different rules. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how I see it.
Well, the way I see it is that you should follow religion because it really actually improves your life and your inner well-being. I don't think
that would be the morally honest reason to follow religion.
Yeah,
but people aren't necessarily morally honest.
Yeah, well, I guess, yeah, I think there's a lot of reason, like, I'm not saying that deterrents don't exist or that it isn't used as a deterrent. I'm saying that the deterrent isn't why you should follow a religion. I think if you're at the point of deterrent, you're not really believing the religion as a whole, or the religion is actually really miserable and the deterrent is working, I guess. But I would say in the case of Christianity, I don't really fear the deterrent. You know, I love Jesus, and my fear is that I fail Jesus, or that I don't. There's been moments where I've just like acted like a retard and just not done well, and I wasn't worried about going to hell as much as I was like, I did not represent God in a good way there. I really let God down on that one.
Your father was disappointed.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's less of, you know, I don't have a worry of going to hell. Doesn't feel like a deterrent to me, and it never really was. Even though I was raised a Christian and I was distanced, like far away from that, where I'm sure if I had died in that moment, I probably would have gone to hell because I was absolutely not living it. But that never felt like a deterrent to me specifically. I never had that fear, and I don't think it's healthy to use it as a fear. You know, I think it's the way to look at it is more like the laws of physics. So like if you jump off a building, depending on how tall that building is, you're going to die, right?
Right.
So this is just like a natural consequence that happens. It's not really, because if the Bible is true, then it is a natural consequence. These are the laws of like existence,
right,
essentially. And so I would say that I wouldn't look at it as a deterrent, and I would encourage others to not look at it as a deterrent, because if you're looking at it as a deterrent, then I don't think you can focus on the good. You know, it's too fear-based. And
right.
According to the Bible, God does not give us a spirit of fear. So you don't want to be stuck in fear of something. You want to actually live and be able to live freely.
What about the consistent teaching to fear God?
I would say that's more of like a respect of God, a more of an awe of God, which I go with like on the traditional side of that, right? Like some of my ideas are not traditional, but I really believe in that. It's like the awe of God, like understanding that he's like huge, like it's a big deal.
That's kind of where I'm at with it. Yeah. But most people take that as the fear of punishment, you know, fear God, the fear of punishment.
Yeah, I would definitely not fear, like fearing, like I would not take that as like a, you know, anxiety or worry about life, essentially.
I would say you're in the minority as far as what we've just talked about, as far as people wanting to be good Christians so they don't disappoint their father, and that idea that you don't have to fear God, you don't have to fear the punishment. I would say you're definitely in the minority. I'm assuming, just from my understanding of my experience with people, most of religion seems to be about fear of punishment. I'd say you're much more morally just in your beliefs, or your motivations anyway, to follow a path rather than just concern for your own well-being after you have your physical death. So that's good.
I mean, go ahead.
We kind of got off the subject. This is like getting into this, I think, is something we could probably talk about for another 3 or 4 hours. But if somebody clicked on the video, they'd be like, "What is this? This isn't talking about evil."
We did. We kind of wandered. We kind of strayed a little bit.
Yeah. Do you think that? I mean, some certain people aren't going to like this, but do you think that evil, Satan, whatever, can be intertwined in our teachings in all the different religions? Is it possible that, you know, there have been some evil things that we don't realize are evil that have been sort of worked into different religions?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I mean, I think that's even true with Christianity, not in terms of Christianity, what is true, but in terms of what gets in the way doctrinally. Um, I think, I think some of the things the Catholic Church is evil, or actually outright gross and disgusting. No offense to the Catholics. I love Catholic people. I have good relationship with Catholics.
Mm-hmm.
And even in the Protestant side, I think there's things in the Protestant side that, is twisted. Not
Well,
to the degree I would say Catholics are, though, if I'm being honest. But
well, I was kind of going to go with, I mean, actually a good bit about Islam.
yeah,
The idea that Muhammad was in a cave and the angel Gabriel came to him and was like, "All right, I'm gonna give you God's message or whatever." How is it not possible that was just 100% Iblis, as they call him, or Satan,
yeah,
that popped up
Iblis.
and said, "I'm Gabriel, and I'm gonna give you all this stuff,"
Yeah,
So yeah, that's
I mean,
the
it does
idea that
say,
if you believe in these entities,
yeah,
entities with evil intentions that are able to interact and are capable of causation, that's that is a crazy rabbit hole when it comes
yeah,
to all doctrine. I know I've told you before, I don't believe every word in the Bible is divinely inspired. So, and there's a lot of people that have a serious problem with that, but it seems to me that you can look and see things like the whole 50 shekels thing in Deuteronomy and all that stuff. And just like in the Quran, like I'm reading the Quran right now, I'm about halfway through it. It seems like a lot of the stuff in the Quran is like really pertinent to what was happening, like with Muhammad and with the Muslims at that time. I think there's stuff in the Bible that basically, and we've seen it over the centuries, people use religion as a means to their own end. I think that there's stuff in the Bible that assists that I think there is a lot of divinely inspired stuff in the Bible. But I also think there's these little caveats and addendums that were added in there by the scribes, the human beings that were writing it down, maybe very subtly or whatever. Like the idea of, I'm not going to remember. Who was it that the Israelites were told by God to kill everyone, even the children?
Canaanites.
The Canaanites. Yeah, to me, that wasn't divinely inspired, which obviously it didn't actually happen. So there's a debate on, on what's literal there and figurative, because they survived. They
Wait,
didn't.
is there historians saying that event didn't happen?
No, they just say that all the Canaanite people weren't wiped out. Basically, that maybe
Okay.
they were intended it, but they didn't manage it. So there's
Right, right.
debate on why the people survived.
It's like whenever I think they also had at some point they had an order to wipe out all the Philistines from Gaza, and it was prophesied by God at that time, because you did not wipe out all the Philistines, this would be a thorn in your side for like ever.
Right.
Just
Eh?
saying.
Yeah, man. But anyway, I do believe that the problem is whether or not that's just men, that's just human nature, or if that was inspired by evil, by Satan,
Well, thinking about what you were saying,
the snakes
about,
that got in the garden.
yeah, I would say, like, when you were talking about when you're reading the Quran, there's a lot of things that are relevant to the time. I think there's a lot of that in the Bible that's relevant to the time, but I think if you really dig like into the Old Testament and you look at the history, or just understand like the Jewish perspective, especially on the Old Testament, things start to make a lot more sense. So it doesn't seem as like, yes, it is relevant to the time, but it's not relevant to the time in the sense that that those things are outdated. It's relevant to the time in the sense that those things are prophetic and should also still be practiced to a certain degree today, and still are. A lot of the Jewish feasts and holidays and stuff are still celebrated, but Christians at large have really fallen away from that understanding. They don't really understand the Hebrew. They don't understand the Hebraic roots that the Bible is in, which is why we get like anti-Semites like Nick Fuentes who have no understanding, in my opinion, of the Bible, and they lose those meanings. I think you can read the Bible in any like modern translation, essentially, ESV, KJV, or in different languages. And I think you can become a Christian through that, but I don't think you're going to get a full understanding without an understanding of the times and what happens in Judaism.
Right.
I think a lot is lost by not understanding those things. And
Right. Yeah, that's why actually I'm reading the Tanakh.
Yeah.
Allegedly, this translation that I'm reading is super close to the Hebrew.
Right.
But that's why I wanted to read that rather than I have the ESV. Instead of just reading the Old Testament from the ESV, I want to understand the roots. Like you said, Jesus was a Jew, man. I want to understand the roots and the beliefs of those people from that time rather than what we have now or our understanding of it.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Have you come across the 10 utterances yet?
I don't think so. No, because I started reading the Quran again. I started the Tanakh, and then I was like, man, I said I was going to read through the whole Quran. Well, you know this.
Yeah.
So I'm doing it. And honestly, it's terrible, man. I'll be honest. I'm sorry, but it's terrible.
It's a hard read.
It really is. It repeats the same stories over and over. I hear the story about the... Oh, never mind. But yeah, it's... But one of my points there is a surah in there, and I can't remember which one, where it names this man specifically, this guy that left Muhammad, and it names him by name. And it's like, if this is from God, it's not going to name this one person out of all of humanity who pissed Muhammad off. How is God going to talk about this one guy and how he should be whatever punished or whatever? It's like, come on, man. But yeah, that to me, I've seen a lot of cases where it was like, this is the problem of the day of this time, and here is a message from God covering this particular issue that we're having right now. It's like, I don't know about that.
Was it like a moral issue, or like what kind of issue was it?
No, this was this guy, and I actually like looked him up before. He was part of like Muhammad's crew, clique, and he was like, I'm out, and him and his wife like took some supplies or something like that with them and left. And so it was like, hey, screw this guy, he needs to be punished, and God said it himself. See where I'm going with that?
Very convenient.
Yeah. Then there seems to be a lot of that in there, but I haven't finished it. I haven't even gotten to the really controversial part yet. I'm working my way towards that, where I've read like Surah 2, the beginning of as the Medina period, and it's Surah 2 is like a whole different tone than a lot of the rest of it. So I'm actually curious to get to that, because like we were talking about earlier, when you were talking about people killing other people for being gay, for basically being against these religious beliefs. One thing that I have read in the Quran over and over and over again is Allah says, don't worry about those people, I'll handle it. To paraphrase, like I've read that like 20 times so far. And then I'm thinking, with all of this stuff that's going on and, that happens over there and that happens in Islam, where does this change? I mean, I know there's the hadiths, but I'm kind of, I don't want to say looking forward, but kind of looking forward to getting some understanding on where that changed, and that's all religions, people have persecuted people for all time and for their religious beliefs and all that. And from what I'm seeing so far, it's like, don't worry about that. I got that. You know, that people have had, and the Talmud people or whatever, where Allah supposedly handled that. Those are the stories I've talked about that have repeated, like, I couldn't tell you how many times so far. At what point did that get twisted and people started like, no, I got this, you know, God wants me to take care of this bad person. Anyway, that's all. That's another conversation too. What's up, T? Okay, you been, man?
Yeah, it is. It is the Quran is pretty dense. It's pretty hard to read. I've read portions of it. I haven't read the whole thing or anything, and I've read some of the hadiths, and it is, even when it's translated to English, it's pretty tough.
Yeah.
It is pretty rough.
Yeah,
it's not an easy thing to get through, for sure. My dad reads it every day. Like, I'll go in his room and it's just boom, it's open.
People read the Bible, right?
Yeah, and I'm like, how do you do that?
You're the same
faithful and loyal,
yeah,
you know?
I'm assuming it reads differently in Aramaic. As
or
far
Arabic,
as
you mean?
Arabic, yeah.
Yeah.
Is it Arabic or Aramaic?
Arabic. Are you talking about the Quran?
The language, yeah.
Yeah, Arabic, yeah.
Okay. Because I've had Muslims tell me, you know, you need to listen to someone that speaks Arabic, you know, read it, and it's beautiful, and it's more like poetry. But when you read it in English, it is not.
It is definitely not.
It is not beautiful. It's not poetry.
Yeah, I don't really
so
buy its poetry in Arabic either. But they sing it, which is weird because music is not allowed in Islam. But they sing it. Music is allowed as long as it's singing, and this is like their way around that. That's why the prayer call sounds like it does.
I didn't even know that music wasn't allowed in Islam until someone that watched one of my videos was like, can you continue this but without the music, because we're not supposed to listen to music? And I'm like,
yeah.
I actually said, well, the music is really low, so maybe if you turn it down, you could still hear what I'm saying without the music.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of things, like you're not supposed to draw anything that is animate, like anything that is living, that moves or grows. So you're not supposed to draw like trees. You're not supposed to draw like animals.
Right.
But you could draw like a bowl. You could draw a bowl. You could draw, you know, a car, but you can't. And then the punishment for drawing something that you're not supposed to draw is God taunting you in hell forever and saying, give it life. Actually, I'm the only one that can give life. And that's the punishment for drawing a deer or a rabbit or another person, or, you know, so someone better tell these ancient artists, dude, that they can't give them life, dude. I don't know. Pixar is so fucked. It's unreal.
Pixar. Well, I mean, they do animate them. Does that count?
Well, no, because they're not alive. Yeah, essentially animation is just one drawing really quickly with another drawing, you know?
Right.
So, you know, Disney, never seen anything more damnable than The Incredibles.
Right.
Yeah, so that stuff, that's the part where I start going like, you know, like when I was talking about evil before, and like how does sin have a real world impact? When I look at things like that, I'm like, how does drawing something, you know, a picture, you know, like old churches are famous for having these, what do they call it? The glass displays where it's like, you know, multicolored.
Oh, the stained glass.
Yep. You know, nativity scenes and stuff like that. Like, how is that like a negative? Where's the negative part that comes in from that? And I think realistically, if you're being real with yourself, there isn't one.
Right.
And this is just the part where there's just made up things in Islam, in my opinion. Like, you can't listen to music for what reason? Like, what does listening to music cause that is so negative?
Well, there are religions where you're not supposed to dance, right?
Yeah, I think there's some
like Christian religion
believe that they're not supposed to dance, but I don't understand that either. Like, where is that in the Bible? Like
Right.
that's literally just made up. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like someone just said that and they were like, yeah, let's go with that. That sounds like there's too much dancing in this town. We got to put an end to that. You know? So yeah, I don't.
What's up, Shannonine? How are you? Yeah, I mean, I think there's that as much as there's in Christianity. This was saying faith is from God, religion is from man. You know,
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
just like don't the Jews still? Well, Jews and Muslims don't eat pork, right? Neither one of them eats
Correct.
pork. Yeah,
Yeah, correct.
but Jesus said, and Jesus is a prophet in Islam, that you can eat all foods. So why didn't that like
I don't
apply?
know if he said that in Islam. I really don't know if he said
Well,
that in Islam.
in Islam he probably didn't, because
Right.
but it does say that Jesus was a prophet. Even actually, something that's wild is it even says in the Quran that he was imbued with the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Right. So why not? Why do they not follow, unless they just don't believe that he actually said it, because they try to say that the Bible is false, even though Muhammad said that this was the word from God, and Allah said that his word can't be changed, and there's that whole twisting and
the
turning
Islamic dilemma, as they're calling it on
yeah.
social media these days.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I guess back to our subject, how do you rationalize the problem of evil? The fact that if God is omniscient and omnibenevolent, why is there suffering? Why is there evil in the world if he is all powerful?
Well, I think he gave us free will, which is a problem. So many consider it probably one of the worst things ever done.
No, I don't know. To me, I think. Well, I think the solution that's offered for free will is he gave us free will so we could choose to love him or choose to not, because it's not love, it's not faith if you don't choose it. So
that's true.
But I guess what the problem of evil is, why there is that potential for humans to choose evil, for that to, basically be an option. I think that's kind of where it gets, the problem of evil comes from.
I think it's multi-layered. So this is my thought. My thought is that God made us in his image, and it's not just like a physical image, it's a image spiritually, and even personality wise. Humans create, God creates. Humans are like driven to create. I mean, look at everything we've created. I mean, it's insane, right? Even if they're not following Christianity, they're driven to create. I mean, look at the amazing things that have been built in non-Christian countries by non-Christians. Like, there's a lot of crazy architecture that is just wild.
Yeah, advancements in our nature. Otherwise, we'd all still just be living in caves, around a fire.
Yeah, so I'd say almost we have like somewhat of a God nature. I wouldn't say that everybody is God or anything, but the Bible does call everyone like mini gods, like small g. Yeah, kind of a controversial take, but that's what it says, like that we're little gods, and God straight up says, I think in the KJV it reads as like, maybe it reads as evil, but it might read as calamity, but the appropriate translation is evil, that he created evil, but he chooses not to do evil. So in that sense, there's this question that people think is nonsensical, like, can God build or create a boulder so big that not even he can lift it? And I'd say yes. I think the answer is pretty clearly yeah, actually.
But then he can't do anything because he can't lift the boulder. I actually had this exact conversation with these atheists, and they brought that up, and I was like, yeah, God can create a boulder and put a limit on himself on how much he can lift. So he can create a boulder bigger than he can lift, And then if he needs to move the boulder, he can take that limit off himself and move the boulder. That way he can do everything.
Well, I would even say it's a little different than that. I would say that he's already kind of done that, because God is in Christendom, we believe God is like a perfect moral God who never lies. So when God promises that he'll never flood the earth again, you can be guaranteed that he's never going to flood the earth again, right? Like after he did it with Noah.
Right. What's
So,
the point?
in a sense, he's already created a boulder he can't lift because he's not a liar.
He put a
doesn't
limit
lie.
on himself. He
Put
did
a limit
limit.
on himself,
Right.
and he promised to never do it again. And because he's a perfect God that is sinless, then he's never going to do it again. And you just never
Right.
have to worry about God flooding the earth again. It's just not something he's going to do. So already we're saying now, like, okay, because he's perfect and he never lies, he will not flood the earth again. Now, could he? Probably, but if
He
God
absolutely-
is not trustworthy, then there's no reason to really follow God, in my opinion. If God is not somebody you can trust, then there's no point in following that God. So I think he could do evil. He just chooses ultimately not to. Like, he's the only being that can choose not to
Was
do
that
evil.
evil for him to do that? Was that evil
Was what evil to flood
for
the
him
earth?
to flood the earth?
No, I don't think so. So there's a couple of different ways to approach that. There's one school of thought that believes everything pretty much at that time was corrupted by Nephilim, and fallen angels. So like Noah was like the last true human bloodline in some people's belief. The other one is that quite literally all humans are deserving of death. And so when God kills you, it's a little different than another human taking the decision to kill you. So I wouldn't say it was evil, no. It seems
Okay.
like humanity was so corrupted that it had to be done in order for actual humanity to thrive again. But that's
Let me take
that's
that
my-
Let me take that a step back even further. This is definitely we're getting off the subject again, but this is actually a question that I've had, and I've had this question posed to me. Why did God flood the earth?
Well, that was because humanity had become so corrupt. I
Right.
really do believe that.
And if God created man, does that mean he made a mistake? And that was him fixing his mistake.
No, I don't think he made a mistake. I think that, like I was saying earlier, it is an actual war. You know, I don't think everything is God's will. There are some things that are God's will, and you can seek to search like what God's will is for your life and follow it. But I don't think everything is God's will, because the Bible says that God wants everybody, like his greatest desire is everyone should repent and turn to him. But that clearly doesn't happen. So God's will is for everyone to become a Christian and like serve him and love him and all this other stuff, but that's not actually what happens in reality. So by default, we know that not everything is God's will.
Right.
People die, and they die never knowing Christ, or they rejected Christ in some way. So we know that's not his will for people to do that.
Right. Well, that's kind of back to the free will thing, and I jive with the idea that people can't choose to love if it's not a choice. You know, that love
I agree with that.
isn't real if it's not a choice. Shit, what was I going to say? Oh, on see, there's that whole problem with evil being a choice. You know, if God is all powerful, why is evil, like direct evil, able to be an influence if that's not God's will? That evil choice is put to people, the ability to choose evil, because if it's just to choose to love or to not love, that's covered in free will, but there's more choices there than what it seems like God would give. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I think you kind of answered your own question a little bit. If the choices between God and not God, then there's like a lot of stuff that happens with the not God portion.
Right, but evil is acting directly against what we assume is God's will. Rather than acceptance or not acceptance, this is actually acting against God.
Yeah. And I think, in my opinion, this is how I see things. I'm not saying this is mainstream Christianity or anything like that. The way I see things is there's like two different factions. There's three factions. It's almost like a trinity, one could say. There's three different factions. There's the faction of God, right? Like you're either on God's side or you're not. But then there's two other factions. I'd say Satan is on his own faction, and the demons and people who are really into that stuff. There's people that just seek the destruction of humanity. And then there's a third faction, which I think is the humanistic side of humanity. I would say like Brian Johnson falls into this, because Brian Johnson, Brian Johnson?
Name's familiar.
So Brian Johnson, for people who don't know, Brian Johnson is a guy who's trying to live forever. And
I know it. Okay.
He believes that it's possible to live forever through the technology we have right now, that we'll find a way for immortality outside of, getting hit by a car, getting shot.
Right. Yeah, he's trying to hack biology.
Right. And I would say that's like a third faction. That's like the Tower of Babel faction. That's like humans trying to usurp the throne themselves, usurp the throne of God themselves, and also the idea that they can live forever and have these pro immortality views, and trying to really come to a conclusion of living forever, like what gives life to the human body. And so I think ultimately, like, you've got the devil who wants to destroy humanity, and then you've got humanity who wants to usurp the throne of God, and then you've got God's side. And so in my opinion, that's kind of how I kind of see life, is there being like three factions. And your original question though is like about like why. Repeat the question one more time. I almost got lost. We'll have an ADHD moment.
Why God would allow that? Well, why God would allow that third faction?
Why God that would allow that for the third faction? Yeah. So if there is no, is it specifically that third faction, or is it specifically like why can we turn away from God?
Well, it's more. The original question was really more about. I mean, you sort of nailed it with the three factions as far as it tying in is. Yeah, why is there that third faction? There's that faction to choose God, to love God. And then we have the human side of us, the other part of free will, to not choose God and love God and basically go down our own road, even to see ourselves as God, the top of the food chain, which I think is pretty common. Why is evil? Why would there be that third faction of direct conflict to God when it's not direct conflict to the middle faction? Really, it's more evil is like, well, I guess you could say evil itself, if its goal is to destroy humanity, well, that's still a conflict against what God supposedly wants for us. But why would God allow that third destructive faction?
So Satan's faction?
Yes.
I see. Well, I think it's because like when I was saying like we're made in his image, I think God literally could do evil if he wanted to. But because he is the most moral being, he is a perfect being, he never does evil, although he did create evil. So I would say we also have that same choice. And this is why, like, Jesus being a human being and also God is like relevant, right? Because Jesus was in a human body, but he was perfect, never committing any sin. So therefore, he's like a perfect being. And the whole thing in the church is you want to exemplify or emulate Jesus's life, but that's like literally an impossible standard. Like literally nobody can even live up to that standard, and people can't even live up to their own standards, right? Like we would say like, well, it's wrong to lie, but then we tell a lie. You know what I mean? Like that's not even that's something that atheists will believe, that it's wrong to lie, and then they will lie, right? So they're not even living up to their own standards. So we're all hypocrites in this way. But at the same time, I think it's essentially we have the choice because God has the choice. I think that's why, because we are literally made in His image in more ways than just like appearance. We're made in His image in personality and in motivation and in all this other stuff. Because if you can look at how messed up we are and then understand that God has those same choices that we have, but yet chooses not to do that, I think that makes Him more incredible than if He was just someone who couldn't do those things, because He is perfect.
Well, yeah, obviously he'd do anything. I guess that comes back to just actually the original subject is evil a thing, or is it just a privation of good? Because I think when you look at evil, you just automatically see evil as something that is directly contradictory to objective morality. And I'm not sure that it's just that. I mean, do you think that our morals are rules sent directly from God, or is it something that was created by men for survival reasons? I mean, you can look at, I talked about earlier about, our main drive in our animal brain is survival. Religions themselves are a requirement, or were at the time, are one of the ways to survival, banding together under whatever the same beliefs and that sort of thing. Before people had the Bible, they still had, societal moral structures, like thou shalt not kill was, except for like the Aztecs and stuff like that. But,
yeah,
I mean, that was kind of there. I think to say that anything that goes against moral virtue or Christian beliefs or, just objective morality, I don't think are necessarily evil. They're just people choosing. I mean, you have sociopaths who just, that's not, part of their limit is morality isn't something that limits them. But I don't think that all sociopaths are evil. I don't think that they're inherently evil or influenced by evil. I think they're influenced by personal gain for whatever reason.
Oftentimes short-sighted personal gain.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's another kind of reason for the structures of morality is, like we talked about earlier, eventually if you keep doing these immoral things, it's going to come back and bite you in the ass.
Yeah.
For the most part. Where was I going? Oh, basically, I guess defining what is evil exactly is difficult for me, because I can see just about everything that people consider evil as just being without that moral compass, without being restricted by morality. But in the rare cases when you get into stuff like serial killers and stuff like that, which not just that, there have been many things done by groups that were, in my opinion, objectively evil. That's
like Jim
one
Jones.
of the big. Yeah, well, I don't know, man. I mean, Jim Jones believed.
I don't know, did he?
But at the end, no, I think he really. I think he's like your description of Nick Fuentes. A very charismatic dude that just had some odd beliefs, but the whole Guyana, everybody kill yourself at the end thing, that could be seen as objectively evil. What was the point?
He was also doing things like faking cancer healings. Like he was getting rotted pieces of chicken and being like, "Oh, this guy has a brain tumor," and then doing a sleight of hand trick and then
The
pulling
whole
out a rotten
shaman
piece of
thing.
yeah, and
Right.
saying, "Oh, look, I've got the tumor." You know what I mean? Like he was intentionally faking things, and he knew were fake. Like when Nick Fuentes talks about Jewish people or Jewish power or the U.S. government or Israel or whatever, I really believe he believes those things. Whereas someone like Jim Jones, I know he doesn't believe those things. There's no way he believes those things
Well,
because
I would say you don't get that far without having some legitimate belief, but I well, and I can see that being used, like we were talking about earlier, how we can rationalize or justify anything to ourselves.
yeah,
How that being used as if it brings people to the faith, if it enhances their faith, then this subterfuge is a good thing. You know, kind of like the whole um, the lying in Islam conversation. You know, if it brings people to the faith, then you know we can justify fooling them.
yeah,
So I'm sure that he had a belief, and who knows, he may have started out with good intentions and solid belief, and eventually just you know
yeah.
went the other direction.
Have you ever looked at Jim Jones's belief before?
Not in particular, no.
I highly recommend it.
More his lives, but not his belief.
Oh, look at his beliefs. It's when you look at his beliefs, you're gonna be like, that
I'm
is
sure there's some crazy shit in there.
brother,
Understatement.
his beliefs have been mainstreamed massively. It's crazy. I don't want to get into politics, but yeah, he is.
So
the
would you say
mainstream.
he was influenced by an outside force of evil,
Oh,
or
absolutely.
would you just say
Yeah, I
he
think
was
that dude was
lacked
demonic.
morality?
I think that dude was straight up demonic. Like I think he.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's someone I read and I was just like, oh, he was like before SJWs were SJWs. You know, social justice warrior. He really was that. I mean, he was the full everything you hear about like leftists, every crazy leftist idea he held, like in the during his time frame, which is nuts because that was a time when America was far more conservative than
Right.
it is today, and his ideas were absolutely crazy. He had all these ideas about racial intersection and intersectionality and stuff that are just so commonly accepted on like a normal college campus today that I'm just like, wait a second, how did the death cult
So
guys ideas
does that
become
mean
mainstream?
right?
How did that
Does-
happen?
Yeah, but what if that just means he was before his time?
Right, he was like the first one demonically possessed by these ideas. Right, he was the first demon. He was the first one. Like, I mean, I'm sure he's not the first one, but like, he was ahead of his time politically. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's like Hitler before Hitler. You know.
Well, what? Nah, never mind. I don't want to put you in a trick bag.
No, go ahead.
On the racial intersection thing. What do you mean by that? What is racial intersection?
I mean, I meant more intersectionality, which is like this big umbrella of like, certain races have it so bad that like we need to do something about that. And Jim Jones himself identified as different races. I think he identified as black at some point, then identified as like Native American, and
He was just a straight up white guy.
Yeah, he was.
Right,
yeah,
right.
But he was transracial, and
I see.
Yeah, like he was
Like the original DEI kind of thing.
Yeah, like original lefty nutcase kind of deal. And I was just like, dude, how the hell did his ideas become mainstream? He literally had a death cult, and now his death cult is on CNN. What the fuck? Like,
yeah.
Like,
well, I think any good idea can get twisted and taken to extremes. So,
yeah, it's a good idea to have equality before everyone, not to judge people based on their race. That's a good idea. But then like it goes further where they're like, okay, well now we need to like punish white people for things they had nothing to do with, and we need to give XYZ race money for whatever reason, even though they haven't lived through that time, or, it's just, I can understand compensation for the time that you're in. Like one of the things that gets brought up a lot about Jews in Israel is the USS Liberty, and the USS.
I read
Liberty
a little bit
thing,
about that.
Yeah, the USS Liberty. Within weeks, Israel had already paid like 130 something million, I think it was, to the several families that were affected by that attack. You know what I mean? And that's like reparations that make sense to me, because the people that did it are there. The people that were affected were there. I found it in my, I found out, like, my mom, she's really big into our family history and stuff, and like digging into her side of the family. And she finds that, like, she found a will left over by one of my ancestors in America where he had left 3 slaves to his 3 different kids. And I was just like, so where's the reparation? Like, am I supposed to pay reparations now for that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I want to make a joke, but I don't want to inject.
That's not. It's not.
Yeah, I want to make a joke, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do. I'm holding back, Jeff. I'm holding back. The demons are whispering in my ears, make a slave joke, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to follow Christ today. We're not going to make a slave joke. But I'll definitely DM it to you after the stream. Anyways, like, so it's like, so it's, it's collective punishment for things you had nothing to do with.
Right.
Evil,
Right. Yeah, there's, of course, the whole argument about slavery in the Bible and stuff like that. And again, another topic for another conversation. That's the guilty mentality. I cannot be held accountable for something my ancestors did. Well, nobody wants to be. And it's not right to do that. And honestly, color shouldn't matter. I mean, the people, yes. The color of their skin, no. Nobody wants to be held accountable for things that other people that have the same color skin as them have done.
Yeah.
No, nobody wants that.
In a way, that's racist.
That is absolutely racist.
And you're white, you got to pay.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's the definition of racist.
Yeah. I'll be right back. I got to use the bathroom real quick.
Okay. All right. Yeah, definitely not where I was intending for this conversation to go, but we'll see if we can get back on track. How are you guys doing, man? Some of you haven't seen in quite a while. Hope you're all doing well. But yeah, maybe the whole racism thing has been an influence of evil. I am so on the fence on the existence of evil as an outside force. Most of the logic leads to it's just 100% just a privation of good, a lack of morals. But there's some things, man, that have happened that make you wonder if there was an outside influence. You're in lots of pain, but the drugs help a little bit. No, I think it's a silly premise to. Pisca, what's happening, man? How you been? Haven't seen you in forever. How's everything, man? Yeah, I know, it's my fault. I haven't been streaming. I've been reading a lot. I'm okay? Well, I've learned to get fairly happy with okay.
I'm back.
I've learned to become fairly satisfied with content. Busy house renovation and education. Still going to school. That's awesome, dude. Did we talk about this earlier? Can you think of anything in nature that you would deem as evil? I think I brought that up when we got started.
Human nature.
Right. Aside from humans, is there anything? Does evil exist aside from, without being connected to us, without being connected to humans?
I mean,
like the whole deer suffering before it dies instead of just dying instantly. Can you see that as evil?
I don't think animals are held to the same moral responsibility that humans are, so I don't think they're necessarily evil for just living life the way they were created to be.
Right. Evil's always a perspective. We have evolved the beliefs, in my opinion, over the years to change the religion to match the change in social standards. Some things are straight evil. I don't know, man. For me to see what we would call evil deeds done by a person who is getting some sort of personal gain from that, even if it's, again, immorality that'll come back and bite him in the ass eventually. I don't see that as an outside influence unless it is somehow immediately detrimental to the survival of the person doing those things. So, I don't know. If a good person decides suddenly, well, I mean, you do look at acts like murder and unaliving yourselves, and people that take out their whole family, and they're like, I mean, is that just mental illness, or was there some sort of influence on that? You have these events happening, and everyone says they were a happy family, they were a normal, happy family, and for some reason, dad snapped, and all of a sudden they don't exist anymore. Something like that seems like, I mean, I'm sure it can get blamed on mental health, but it seems like that could also be attributed to an external force, a devil on the shoulder whispering in their ear. So it's hard to differentiate those sorts of things. I think a lot of human actions, historical events, things like that have been blamed on evil as kind of a scapegoat. So yeah, I guess that's the question: has it always just been a scapegoat, or does it exist? Demonic possession would be like, I don't want to say I want to see it. Well, I do kind of want to see something like that in person, because that would tell me that, yes, evil, 100%, Satan exists. Satan walks the earth. Demons are real, that sort of thing. If I saw a body levitate above the bed and start spewing out pea soup and all that stuff, then I would know. But I guess the problem for me is I haven't experienced anything that I know is evil and not just the darker side of human nature.
Yeah, I think one thing you brought up that was interesting was the mental health thing, and being into peptides myself, I've not just dove into peptides, but I've dove into like human health in general. And the more I dig into that, the more I'm like, I'm not exactly sure everyone's responsible for the position they find themselves in. Some people, like hardline conservatives, will be like, oh, dude, you just need to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and go on forward. But when I start looking at like how bad the food has been, and the fact that they can't properly filter out psychotic medications like SSRIs and other antipsychotics out of the water, and so you're drinking in a bunch of stuff that your body might not need exposure to, and that has like an actual influence on your mind, even though you're not trying to do wrong. It can lead to dysfunctionality of the human body, and you're not entirely disconnected from your human body morally.
Hmm.
You are, you know, like we were talking about what evil is. Like sometimes I think evil is like inaction. Like if I saw you on the side of the road and I could do something about it, like you are suffering in some way, maybe someone shot you and I could call the police and call an ambulance or something, and I don't do that and I just let you bleed out on the side of the road, I would say my inaction was an evil inaction, like an evil indifference to it, because I could have done something to save your life and I just chose not to. You know what I mean? For whatever reason. So maybe you won't cut me off in traffic next time.
Is that
But-
like evil by omission kind of thing?
yeah, almost. Yeah, like I think that's entirely possible.
I guess it would be the reason why you didn't stop.
Yeah, well, yeah, like it would be the reason. Like I could help that person, but I'm just not gonna. You know what I mean? Like your life is
Right.
more important than me just. I don't
Right,
know.
but isn't that just a lack of the moral drive to do the right thing?
Which would be evil, yeah. I think so. You have no desire to do good. What is that? You know?
That's sociopathic.
Yeah,
That's what
I
it
mean-
is.
Well,
So-
I mean, like, you know, I think someone who's really interesting is David Wood. I'm sure you've heard of him by now. I don't know if you know David Wood's entire story. Do you know who David Wood is?
The name's familiar.
He's
Refresh
one
my
of the
memory.
big Christian apologists that argues with Muslims all the time. And he is actually diagnosed antisocial personality disorder, psychopathy. And he beat his dad almost to death with a hammer, and went to jail for it, and became a Christian later on. And it's very strange because he still has that psychopathy about him where he doesn't feel things as a normal person would, yet he lives a moral life in general, right? Like it's not like he's a perfect human being. No one's perfect. But, you know,
So
I
does
would-
he not have that internal drive to live that moral life? But he just basically says, this is the rule set that I'm going to follow.
right. And to some degree, I guess he feels the presence of God in some way, but I wouldn't say that, you know, like for example, his son died and it did not move him like someone losing their son would do. And he
Right.
posted about it on social media and he made videos and he did not seem sad. Like he didn't want his son to die, but what ended up happening was a bunch of Muslims started shitting on him and saying like, you know, your son deserved it and all this other stuff. But, you know, because they have problems with what he says about Islam.
Right.
So, so it was a real, you know, for everyone else who wasn't David Wood, they seemed significantly more bothered by this than David Wood himself, because he's a psychopath, literally.
Right.
For whatever reason, he's just not there. It's not like he killed his son. His son died of I think like a genetic disorder. I think it was. And his son is a kid. It's not like his son is like a full-grown adult. It's like it's a child. And yeah, I think there's something to be said about like the biological disposition you have, because not everything is entirely your fault in terms of how you are. You know what I mean? Especially, and I'm not even talking genetic. I'm talking like, you know, you could be hit by a car and now you have anger issues because you have a traumatic brain injury where you didn't have them before.
Right.
You are, you know, turns out you had a really bad reaction to some food you ate and now it's caused permanent damage in your body to some degree that influences your personality, you know. And so I think there's like mercy there, but also like, you know, you try to understand the person behind things and how we treat each other. Because I will say, like, losing 100 pounds with like tirzepatide, like the peptide, it's
Mhm.
Mounjaro or Wegovy. Wegovy's Ozempic.
Yeah,
Mounjaro or
Mounjaro.
Zepbound. It really it really had like an impact on my brain. And the impact it had on my brain was that it fixed a lot of my ADHD symptoms and increased my executive function. Like I was executive dysfunction, like I wasn't working as much as I really should have. I had problems with impulse spending. I never got into debt or anything like that, but I did have problems with impulse spending. I just spend way too much money that I didn't need to be spending. And I also wouldn't work as much as I could have worked. And when I started taking tirzepatide, I started working a ton, and all my impulse spending went out the window, and I started saving more money than I've ever saved in my life. And I was like, I just took one medication, and my life is like significantly better. Like not just because of weight loss. Like even if it did 0 weight loss, I would still take it because the impact.
So you think it's
an
actual brain chemistry thing?
Yeah, like it's actual brain chemistry impacting my life for the worse. Like it actually becomes where, you know, a lot of people, they have this problem with my take that actually losing weight is impossible. Like diets don't work. When I say that, people get triggered. Diets do not work. And every single study that comes out about this shows that diets don't work. If diets worked, we would have the majority of people staying on them over a course of 5 years and not regaining their weight. But that's not what we see. We see the opposite. We see the vast majority of people regaining the weight that they lost.
I did it.
Yeah. And
I did exactly that.
Yeah. And it's impossible because we've got some sort of thing affecting our brains. So what I ended up learning from that whole experience is when the Bible says that the way to heaven is to believe in your heart and profess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord. And I was like, yeah, that's actually the only thing that matters. That is, what you believe is the only thing that really matters. Because there's all sorts of forces acting on you. It could be demonic. It could be physiological. It could just be external from another human being. But what actually matters at the end of the day is what you believe. And and that's the way you're going to be judged, is by what you believe in the end, according to Christianity. Whereas like this, and this is a very different belief from literally every other religion where you're judged based on your deeds. So like Islam is very heavily based on your deeds. Like not only is it's not enough to just believe in God, you also have to believe in God and have good deeds.
Yeah.
This to me this is not a human approach. This is not an approach that was done for humans to get into heaven, because when you destroy something, you can never bring it back. If I do something that hurts you, I can never take back that hurt. I can maybe make amends and we can continue on being friends, but the reality is in that moment, in that time, we're not sure about the future. I could have hurt you and the next day you're dead. You know what I mean? And I never get to make those amends. That damage is permanent. Damage itself is permanent and good is not. Good is not a permanent thing that exists. Like you can always fuck things up. You know, at a moment's notice, you can just let the intrusive thought win and start just going berserk and lose everything. You know, it takes actual discipline and willpower to do good. But at the same time, like I was saying, you've got forces impacting you at all times that are not necessarily what you believe. This is like what I was talking about earlier. Like even atheists will say like it's wrong to lie, you know, and then they'll tell a lie if they're not even living up to their own standards, because there's a force that's impacting you moment to moment. You know, maybe it's a fear of the result of not telling that lie. Like if you're honest, maybe you genuinely made a mistake about something, and now if you're honest about it, you're going to reap the consequences of your mistake. Or it could be simply, you know, your brain is messed up and you genuinely cannot tell the difference between truth and a lie. Mm-hmm. You know, in such cases as like schizophrenia, those people are delusional. And there's a lot of schizophrenics who legitimately believe in God, but because of what's happened to their brains, they cannot discern truth from reality. The reality from non-reality, I should say. They just are delusional about things, you know. There's people in the mirrors that are trying to get them, you know, the CIA is after them. Maybe that's actually true. Maybe the CIA is actually after everyone. Not to get conspiratorial, you know what I mean? Like, But like
Yeah, just
they
because
have
you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not watching you.
exactly, dude. And it's there's so many things that can impact you, and to just base things off of deeds alone is or deeds in general is just not good enough.
When it comes to evil, like we were talking about earlier, choosing that third faction, is that what? And I don't know what you think about this, and I know what some other people think about this. The parable of the Garden of Eden, is that the way of explaining by the serpent how evil basically became that third option? Is that is original sin the explanation for our ability to be influenced by evil?
So I think it kind of goes to how we were made to begin with, right? So like the original lie was that you become like God.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that goes back into the three factions thing. You've got the serpent said, "Oh, you will not die, and you'll become like God." And
In knowing the difference between good and evil.
And they did die. Not that moment, but 900 years later. They did die, and they wanted
That's
to
what that
become
guy
like
that
God.
wants to live forever needs to do. He just needs to go back and live like the people that lived back then, because they lived for hundreds of years.
Yeah, exactly. They were all on they were doing MRIs every day. They had like EKGs regularly. They were taking blood tests,
It was just the red light thing.
Yeah, they had red light therapy, every day. They were injecting all sorts of peptides and, doing plasma replacement therapy and all this other stuff. So, yeah, so the original lie, it's like it is the three factions, right? You got the serpent who's lying for your destruction. And then you've got humanity wanting to become like God. And then you've got God himself. I think that's the three factions like embodied in the very first story.
Right.
And it explains the three at odds, like humanity wanting to become like God. But maybe we could even argue, like in the sense of Christendom, that it's this is a problem where it's like a misaligned or misdirected sense of wanting to become like God. Because they said in the Bible that when you pass away and you're a Christian, you're with God now, And so it's like our desire to become one with him. They always call it the bride of Christ, right?
Yeah, the bridegroom.
And so the desire to become like God is actually innately human, but the usurping the throne of God is a misaligned way of going about it. I just had that thought. That's not something
Right
I thought through before this.
Right. Now, this isn't on evil, but what do you think on original sin? Do you think that we are born sinners?
Yeah, I think that's...
Yeah, see, I have a problem with the original sin thing, because
but I don't believe like aborted babies are going to hell, though. You know what I mean? Like, I don't believe...
Right.
There's like an age of understanding in Christianity and Judaism where you're at an age where you can make an understanding, and the age actually isn't given. And I think the reason the age isn't given is because of like what I was talking about earlier, is you are at the mercy of things impacting you, whether it's like a genetic dysfunction or just simply an accident when you were a kid. There could be things impairing your ability to properly discern reality.
Or the whole, tribe in the Amazon that's, never even heard about God, never even heard about Christianity or never heard about Jesus.
Yeah.
To me, that whole thing goes to basically the free will thing, where this is presented to you and you make the choice to not believe.
Yeah, I think there's a conspiracy. Here's my conspiracy mind. I think the missions organizations out there intentionally do not reach those tribes, because if they reach them, then it would be like the end of all things, right? Like that's where Christ comes back, when he's preached through all four corners of the earth,
when everybody has heard about Jesus.
Yeah, when everybody's heard about Jesus, we're just never going to preach to those guys, so we just keep the
Intentionally.
show going. Nah.
Just holding off Armageddon for just a little while.
We're just holding it off, right? Thank
Just
you,
in case.
Amazon tribe, for not knowing God.
That is, I've never heard a theory like that, and that's funny.
Yeah,
That's funny.
I'm just joking, but
Right.
like, I have these discussions. I've got a couple of missionary friends, and one of my missionary friends, I talk about how I think that we're closer to everyone understanding, or at least having heard God, because of the advent of technology advancing so rapidly. And he doesn't really agree with me. And I'm like, within the next 10 years, dude, there's not going to be anybody that hasn't heard about Jesus from the internet, dude. Like, I just think that that's where we're at. The technology is rapidly advancing.
Maybe.
You know, we've got Kuiper, which is basically Amazon Starlink, and we got Starlink. So everybody on the earth, no matter where you're at, can have internet. Now all we got to do is give them a cell phone, and it's over. You know. And
would you want the rapture tomorrow?
Would I want the rapture tomorrow? Would I want to stop living on this stupid earth? Yeah, probably. Yeah, life is too frustrating. You know, it's stressful. It sucks. I think in every aspect it sucks. And and I'm not saying I'm a miserable person or anything. I'm not really miserable. I'm just saying, like,
It's tough here.
Yeah, it is tough. Here. Life is suffering, no matter what religion you follow. And I'm saying if you convert to Christianity, life isn't getting to get better. It doesn't get better. I mean, it does, but in internally, but externally, life is still terrible.
Right. Yeah, I guess that would depend on how solid your faith is and how well you follow it. For me, since I'm still very agnostic, although I started doing this whole religious research thing to try to build my own faith, because I'm 100%, and I'm not ashamed to admit it, I'm envious of people who have that peace in surety of their beliefs. Being someone that I've questioned everything, and I always have. There are some things that I've come to terms with that have helped, that I never thought I would say, yes, I'm sure this is true. We'll get into that at another time. But even with that, since no one can say for sure, I don't think that, I mean, when it comes to belief, when faith, there are people that are sure, yes, obviously, because there's the Muslim suicide bombers and stuff like that, who are just dead sure that it's going to be better on the other side. Since, to me, no, we can't be absolutely sure, and especially having my health issues that I had a few years ago, where it could have been the end, to me, for now, the win is staying here as long as we possibly can, just in case this is it. And then there's the whole, issue of, if we have a soul, if say our consciousness is our soul, and they've gotten into the thing with showing that the consciousness seems to actually exist outside of the body and just sort of interfaces with the brain. If that's our soul, but knowing that me, Jeff, my identity, all my memories and all that is just stored in the gray matter of my brain, even if my soul continues, I don't think that I continue as far as my identity as Jeff and my memories and all that. Which I know that just from amnesia. You can get knocked in the brain and never remember your name, never remember the people that you love, stuff like that. So for me, as far as that goes, I don't want the rapture to come tomorrow, because of the off chance that it's not going to be better, that I'm not going to continue. I'm cool if it comes, after I die, or like when I'm about to die. But for now, I'm saying let's keep those people in the Amazon rainforest not knowing about Jesus quite yet.
Yeah.
And
don't
let's continue down this path. Right.
Yeah.
So
I would say that's like, yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying. It's hard to imagine something better than this. It's all we've ever known.
Right.
So it's hard to imagine a life without strife or struggle.
Right.
In fact, I'll say things that are like a little, I don't know if they're controversial or not. I don't really care. I just say, like, I'll be reading X, and I'll read the most funny, like back and forth insults of people just going at each other, and I'm like, I hope there's social media to talk trash to each other in heaven because that is so. I'm just sitting there laughing. It's just the funniest thing what people say to each other, and I'm just like, I hope this continues on into the future because I really enjoy this, you know.
Right.
But you know, maybe I just have like a really short-sighted understanding of how good it is in the afterlife, and that's entirely possible.
Well, it's hard for us, I think, to even, like you said, it's hard to even understand what existence without strife,
Evil.
without motivation, without goals, without something to do, basically
Yeah.
without like, a plan or something to motivate us.
To good-natured
Everyone.
people, even if they're not Christians, to good-natured people, there's something deeply satisfying about seeing justice enacted.
Mhm.
And it's almost like a little high you get off of it, right? And I
Right.
think it's almost intoxicating in a little ways, I think, to see justice enacted because you're just like, yeah, fuck that guy. He deserved every bit of destruction he just received there.
That is not very Christian-like.
Yeah, well, it happens, you know.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Maybe
and
that's the evil part. Maybe that's the evil voice back there, the outside influence saying, yeah,
yeah, fuck
don't
that guy in
forgive that guy.
particular. Yeah,
Yeah. He
you
ain't
know, and I'm pretty sure we all do this. Like we'll see, you know, someone who killed their spouse. You know,
right. Or
they're being met to
people
justice.
people that harm children. There's
Oh
nobody,
yeah, that's a
very
hard
few
one to
people
cope with.
that can see that someone who
That's
harms children get punished. And uh, I'm sure if I was a good Christian, I would like feel bad for them, like,
nah, man.
whatever they should be. I
I don't
can't,
know.
man.
That's a tough one.
That's where I draw the line
To
on that
believe
one.
my neighbor in heaven could potentially be a pedophile, I didn't sign up for
Yeah,
that.
that's where
You know what I
that's
mean?
where I draw the line on that.
It's hard to imagine. I mean, you look at like Jeffrey Dahmer, for example. Like Jeffrey Dahmer became a Christian later in his life while he was in prison, and
Mhm.
the pastor who witnessed to him does interviews today. He's alive still, and he talks about his experience talking with Jeffrey Dahmer and like how Jeffrey actually had a genuine conversion to Christ. But then you look at what Jeffrey Dahmer did, and
Right.
it's really hard to believe a person who did things I think we would all agree are evil, unless you're Jeffrey Dahmer at that
Right.
time. Someone like that God's mercy could extend to in order for them to not suffer eternally because
Yeah, I
it was
mean,
so dark.
right, but doesn't the Bible say,
Oh
doesn't
yeah.
Jesus say?
I didn't
Yeah.
say it was. I didn't say it was.
Yeah, I have
not
a
the case. I said it was
problem with
hard to
that.
believe.
I have, yeah,
You know what I mean?
problem with that. But yeah, I mean,
You know, especially.
forgiveness for all.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Erica Kirk and the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and like the forgiveness she offered to Tyler, and it was just like, dude, what the fuck is that? What the fuck?
Do you wonder though if she is kind of like, go back to the whole, Jim, people rationalizing putting on a show for the benefit of others, not for their own benefit? Is it possible that in her heart of hearts, she can't forgive him, but she felt compelled to say that because that's what Christianity teaches? It's hard to imagine that maybe she is that good a Christian that she can actually forgive him. But
I think it is hard to imagine doing that. I think it is believable that she did that based on actions after it happened. So I think bitterness has a way of making people kind of insane. So like if you're really bitter, and you're every right justified to be bitter against someone who did that to you and like took away, your loved ones. I think the fact that she hasn't gone off the rails is kind of testament that she really did forgive that dude.
right. Well, that's
Uh,
I've told many people forgiveness is really not for it's not for the person that you're forgiving. That's for God to do.
yeah,
Forgiveness is to basically take that burden from yourself.
yeah, and I think also, yeah, it is definitely for yourself. It's not good to hold on to bitterness, especially when you've been wronged in such an egregious and public way. I mean, really, like, damn, like that's
Yeah.
brutal. And to get up on a stage in front of the world, uh, and forgive someone like that, that's unreal. Um, but it's like,
Everyone but Candace Owens agrees with you.
dude, I really do not like Candace Owens.
She's
That
she's
bitch is
she's a
evil.
grifter, man. She's a grifter.
She's legitimately evil. I think
I
she
used to
actually
really
is.
like Candace. And I remember when she first started getting big on Twitter in particular, I was like, man, this chick just wants to stir the pot, she's all about it. And then she kind of had her lucid moments, and I agreed with her on a lot of different things, but on this, it's 100% about the grift, man. It's 100% about the views, in my opinion.
I yeah, I could totally see that. I've actually never liked Candace Owens, because she got her start with Social Autopsy during Gamergate when she was a left winger, and she basically made this website called Social Autopsy that was for doxing people. So if she didn't
I
like
was
you,
not aware of that, right? I
oh
was not
yeah,
aware of that.
yeah, so I was just like, so if she didn't like you because of your beliefs or whatever, you end up on Social Autopsy and people get to dox you and threaten you, harass you, and that was totally, totally not acceptable, like in the slightest. And that was like 2015,
Yeah.
or maybe it was 2011, something like that. It was when Gamergate was real big, and I was just like, oh, you didn't know that was wrong, because like her saying after that, her defense after she became like Red Pill Black, that was like her YouTube channel before she hit the Daily Wire. She was
Right.
Red Pill Black, and she was saying, "Oh, I didn't know it was wrong to dox people." Blah 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 blah. It's like, what did you think the intention was there? Like, what did you think like putting people's personal information on the internet was supposed to do?
Right.
So I never bought that. I always felt like she was a grifter. And then I would listen to her from time to time, because she did end up on the Daily Wire, and I am very conservative, and I do listen to people, even if I don't like them. I listen to them. Like, I don't like Nick Fuentes, but I listen to him, just to see what he has to say, and
Right.
make sure I understand.
It's
the
not a bad
counter
idea.
argument.
Right.
I don't agree with Hassan Piker, and I watch Hassan Piker, and his,
I can't stand that dude, man.
yeah, same dude.
But
hell
yeah,
that
you
guy goes.
you gotta not live. You gotta not live in the bubble, man.
Yeah, so yeah, exactly. You can't live in a bubble. I don't think it's healthy to live in a bubble.
Yeah,
But,
the echo chamber skew your reality.
yes, exactly. Especially, and that's how you get led astray, because if someone managed to enter your echo chamber, then you're just going to listen to everything they're saying, and then now you're not hearing any opposing voices. That maybe even though you disagree with the Sun Piker, maybe he makes a point about some stuff, which I know he absolutely does. Sometimes he recognizes proper problems. It's just a solution is, communism.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah. No, I haven't listened to him enough to hear sense come out of his mouth, because
yeah.
I can, like in real life, I can get along with just about anybody. I can tolerate just about anybody. I am, especially as I've gotten older, I am very aware that I am as flawed as everybody else. I think when you're younger, you don't really realize that, but as you get older, you realize it more and more that you're just as screwed up as everybody else.
Yeah.
But he is one of those people that I guess I detest. I really do. If I met him in real life, I couldn't stay in the same room with him. He's just one of those people that would get punched in the face.
Dude, I am in agreement. Him and Vosh. I don't know if you've ever seen Vosh. Do yourself a favor. Never look up Vosh.
No.
Yeah, Vosh is Hassan Piker on steroids. And so, anyways, yeah, I forgot where I was going. But yeah, so essentially, like, Candace Owens, I never believed her idea. Oh, I didn't know it was wrong to dox people. It's like,
come on now.
Yeah.
There's no not knowing that. There's no not knowing that.
Yeah, there's no not knowing.
And it's interesting that she converted to Catholicism and just all about the Catholics now.
Yeah.
I think what you're saying about Catholicism earlier.
Yeah.
Not to slam Catholics, but yeah,
Yeah.
Catholicism is, in my opinion, that's the original mafia.
Kinda. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
You
Pretty
got
much.
your Godfather, you got your lieutenant,
Literally, yeah,
the
I never thought
whole
of
thing.
that before.
Yeah.
You've got the Godfather, the Pope. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah. You
the
send out all your people, all your families, and they send back money to the Godfather.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
but
I guess
very similar.
Yeah, the core difference between Catholicism and Protestantism, what really it comes down to, is that Protestantism believes that the Bible is the final say, and Catholicism believes that humans can actually kind of add an addendum to that, or
Right. And stand in.
Yeah, stand in. And I'm just like, either God's word is uncorruptible and eternal, or it's not.
Right.
And that's kind of how I feel about it.
I think, and that's why I think, the whole split and all that happened. I think Catholicism, I mean, that was the religion. That was the religion of Peter, the church that Peter built for Jesus, basically. But we human beings screw everything up, man. So I think it became more about power, control, and it became about business. Those collection plates are.
I think it's hard to argue that it wasn't about business. I mean, look at it, like they used to take money to absolve people of sins. Like that's
yes, I know. Yeah,
I was just like, oh, they did
that. That wasn't there from the start, but
yeah, but it became a thing because
it developed. I'm really interested in orthodoxy. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at that a little bit. I've seen some pros and cons so far, but I am really interested in the original kind of unadulterated religion, what that looks like. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I think that's going to take a lot of sorting through, but I'm definitely interested in the original intent. You know what I mean? Before we screwed everything up, before we muddied the waters. So I am going to look into that some.
Yeah, I feel like that's a good way to look at it. That's why I like my church, because we dig into like the original Hebrew a lot and understanding the cultural impact of what is being written in the Old Testament and like how Jews practice things and how that relates to the New Testament. Because like you were saying earlier, Jesus was a Jew. And so everything Jesus preached came out of the Old Testament. But if you don't have an understanding of the Old Testament, how can you understand the New Testament?
Right.
Is my thought on it. So understanding.
Right. Well, and to a point, I mean, he almost he corrected some things too, that were part of Judaism at the time, which of course is one of the reasons why they had such a big problem with them.
Right. The Pharisees and the laws they were enforcing.
Yeah. Even with the Sabbath and with a lot of different things. So yeah, for me, that is the true. I told you before, I think, Jesus basically came down to say, this is, I am the example, this is how you do it. He gave his wisdom and he got killed for it. So I'm much more interested in the book of Matthew than anything else in the Bible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but I do want to understand it. I want to understand the original beliefs, what Jesus followed, when he was growing up, his first 30 years, stuff like that. I want to understand it. So, and I think the idea, like you were saying, Nick Fuentes says people shouldn't read the Bible on their own. I think that is absolutely ludicrous. I think everyone should read the Bible. I think if you call yourself a Christian and you haven't read the Bible, you really need to rethink that and put the time in and read the Bible. I don't think we should take anyone's word for it. That's how people end up in cults.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
No, I think especially now, I think human beings are perfectly capable of reading a modern translation of the Bible like the ESV or the NIV or whatever, and coming to their own conclusions, or at least confirm your own beliefs. That's the problem for me. Is I know there are a lot of Christians that go through the motions, but they haven't read the Bible on their own. They're not even sure, the nuances of their church. They do their thing. They go to church on Sunday, or they go to church on Easter and Christmas and figure that's good enough. man, you should probably, for any religion, you should verify your own religion. So you're not going to get to paradise or whatever your religion teaches if you don't truly believe. So maybe you should, actually read what you're ascribing to.
Yeah,
But yeah,
my kind of romp into the Catholic faith started because one of my friends, he's an atheist, married to a Catholic, and he's like, "What is the difference between Catholicism and Protestantism?" And I never really thought about it before, and so we collectively, like just the both of us, started looking into like justification for Catholic doctrine versus what the Bible says. And it was a lot of extrapolating of things that aren't in the Bible. Like, it was just like, well, Jesus said, on this rock I will build my church, and he's talking about Peter, and then like, but like, where does it say that like Peter's going to continue the line of successors or whatever? And then like, where do you get the idea that that's the case when it says we're all kings and priests, in the Bible, and it's like there was a lot of Catholic doctrine that was extrapolated from the Bible, but how did they even get those ideas? Because any person reading the Bible, I don't think would naturally, like if you're an atheist, it was so refreshing to read through it with someone who is an atheist, because he's reading it and he's like, I don't see how they justify this. He's like, I'm an atheist. He's like, I don't see how they're reading this and getting this out of it. That doesn't make sense to me.
right.
And I was like, yeah, it doesn't make sense to me either. I have no idea why that is.
Yeah, that's important. You got to read it with open eyes and open mind. Don't let perspective bias kind of skew your understanding of it.
Yeah. And
I do think it helps to have conversations about it. If you're having conversations about it with people who can kind of think critically and can be open-minded about it, instead of saying, well, it says this, it says exactly this is what it means, period. I don't think that's a way to understanding.
Yeah. And we looked up like like Catholic apologetics to like understand these things, and it just felt to him and me, and he's atheist, so he doesn't really have a bias. I mean, if anything, he would be a more like Catholic bias, since that's what his wife's religion is.
Mm-hmm.
But like, it never made sense to him. Got a kitty cat.
Yeah.
I love cats. But yeah, so yeah, it was just like, how are they coming to these conclusions? And we were just kind of stunned at that point, like, oh, okay, well, this is kind of weird that they come to these conclusions based off this verse and this scripture and whatever.
Right. Yeah. From what I've seen, I have so far to go as far as studying all of these different religions. I had no idea the burden I was taking on myself, but I've been having fun with it. But from what I've seen, nobody, no organization, no denomination has it all exactly right. From what I've seen, you find problematic stuff in all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is intellectually dishonest to pick one and say, this is right, this is the one, Yeah. I think atheists can go to heaven. So I know that's a very unpopular belief. But to me, the idea, like we talked about before, of God seeing us as his children, the idea that a person can be born and live a morally just life, without, and make the mistake of not believing in God. I don't think, to me, that keeps them out of the kingdom. I think, put it this way, I think if someone is born and lives as close as they can to the way that Jesus Christ gave the path to live, to me, that was, he is the way, he is the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Lord except through him. To me, that's what he was saying. This is how you should live your life, period. I don't see someone living their life that way and not being granted eternal life, and someone who professes to believe in, who honestly believes in Jesus, but doesn't lead that just life. I don't see how they get eternal life over this other person simply because they didn't acknowledge their creator.
I think so. That's where I disagree. I think that the acknowledgement of the creator is the thing that matters most. I think that is, the thing that matters. Because if you're an atheist, I don't know if there's simply no hope for humanity. There just isn't. There just isn't any hope for humanity, like, whatsoever, except through acknowledgement of the creator. Because, like I was saying, destruction is permanent. And in Christianity, it is such that your bad deeds far outweigh your good ones, which is kind of the opposite of Islam, where you're weighing your good deeds versus your bad deeds, and
except the good deeds weigh more than the bad deeds.
Exactly. it is the polar opposite, where like one bad deed outweighs all your good, and because of that, you can't possibly earn your way to heaven. There can only be one person that was ever perfect. That was Jesus. And it is not to say that you're going to even live a better life after you accept Christ, or that things are going to improve. Maybe they'll improve, or maybe you die in like 5 minutes, because you're on your deathbed or whatever.
Right.
Like, it is to say that you're taking the escape route out. You want to be closer to God. Like, you want to become one with God, essentially. And I think that's the main message, that, yeah, you can try to live good and all that, but every Christian ever is a hypocrite. And
well, sure, yeah,
and
most I don't think most can profess to be sinless.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, everyone is essentially a hypocrite. I mean, like I was saying, like, people don't live up to their own standards, even if they are agnostic or atheist or whatever. They especially if they're in the West, they have, a Judeo-Christian basis for their beliefs oftentimes, and they
don't tell them that.
I know it's really really tough to understand.
They don't like it at all.
Yeah. But it's like this is the problem, right? Like, no one can really live up to their own standards, even when those standards are actually pretty good. Those, even without God, those standards are like, ideal,
Right.
Like my atheist friend, I'd say his standards were like pretty good. Like, I want to be his neighbor. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
He would be excellent as a neighbor. He wouldn't be like someone that I don't want to be around. So I think in that case, especially when I was talking about earlier, like all the forces that can work on a human being, and there's even debate in the church now whether demonic influence can enter a Christian or not. At the end of the day, nothing is going to fix that except your belief in God. And
right.
Due to destruction being permanent.
Well, original sin is kind of like the open door for that, right?
Yeah, because it's like you're never not gonna sin. You know what I mean? Like, as long as we're in this body or whatever.
Right.
And
I have a problem with original sin. I don't think that a newborn child carries the weight of sin. But like, original sin, that's what it teaches, that we're born sinners. Yes. We're born, unpure. I think more we're born neutral and just have a penchant for sin, basically.
Isn't that kind of what original sin is?
Well, no, original sin is, and that's something else too. The idea of, we talked about slavery earlier, the idea that all humans are tainted because Adam and Eve disobeyed a commandment from God. Yeah, I don't, that doesn't make sense to me. Doesn't make sense to you?
We're all definitely suffering.
We are all capable, 100%. We're all capable, but I don't see that we are already sullied, I guess you could say.
I would say, like, I think the counter argument is, if original sin is not true, then wouldn't there be people that are perfect other than Jesus? Because it seems like we all have a propensity towards sin.
Right. Well, I see the Garden of Eden, the story of original sin, is just as being a parable about disobeying God.
Mhm.
So I think that just acknowledges that we're capable. We're all capable of sin. I don't think that put a mark on everyone's soul,
Right.
as the
So,
idea of original sin seems to.
So like you've got kids, right?
Yes.
And so you were there. I assume you were there when they were born, and then you raised
Yep.
them and all this.
Yep.
So did you have to teach them to do wrong, or did they do wrong and you had to teach them to do right?
Well, yeah, but you can say that a child acting out isn't sinful. A small
So-
child.
Yeah, I know. I guess you could say that, and I would say with the age of understanding, they have no real clue what they're doing.
Right.
I understand that argument, but at the same time, if that behavior is not disciplined out in some way, or understood or taught out, that behavior will continue.
Sure. Right.
Do you know
And
what I
that's
mean?
where, the moral structure of whatever
that's where
society you're part of is. But
That's where
yeah.
Aside from the whole supplying your child so they don't just starve to death and die, the other side of parenting is like making sure you're raising good moral people.
Yeah, teach them how to live properly in society.
Right, exactly. And if you don't do that, then it becomes a real big issue.
Right. Well, even if you do that, they will
Yeah,
still
even if you do that,
they will
sometimes
still
ideas-
sin.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I don't believe we're
you're-
born with sin. I just think that door is open. That, free will gives them the choice to sin, to do bad things. And I think it's human nature, I guess. The idea that door is open, that you have the two doors, the two options. But I don't think that they are born having already carrying the weight of sins that they haven't committed yet. I think a newborn
Yeah,
child is,
technically-
when it dies in Islam, a newborn child can go to hell because before they're even born, it's already known that they're going to hell or going to heaven. Where
Right.
my belief is a newborn child has not sinned. And then
Right.
you do have the age of understanding clause. But even if they pass that age of understanding, if they haven't sinned, then they can't be,
But
they're
no one
not
does that.
corrupt.
Right.
Right,
realistically.
sure,
No
sure.
one does that. We don't really know what the age of understanding is, like in terms of when it is. But the idea behind it is that it is an age at which you understand wrong from right.
Right.
And it's like I don't know what your experience with Down syndrome people are, but if like humanity was like sinless, it would look a lot like Down syndrome, because those people are like the sweetest
Right.
individuals you've
Right,
ever
right.
met in your life, and it's hard to imagine them being vicious and mean. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, it is, it's just, but what is the age of understanding for them? It's not like they don't make mistakes or anything like that, or, they're just like extremely sweet, lovable people.
Right.
And, yeah, I don't know.
Well, I don't think we decided or solved the problem of evil completely, but definitely given me something to think about. And we have wandered considerably through this, but it's been awesome, dude. It's been a great
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah, this is a really good conversation.
So I feel like there was like subjects that we covered that would be 5-hour conversations on their own. So it's been fun, but it's definitely been good to kind of bounce the idea back and forth from someone who believes. I mean, we didn't even really get into to demonic possession, and I think that's something that some screen shares and some reading would assist with. That's a crazy idea that you never know may just be a real thing. And like I said, I would love to see one, just because I would be like, okay, that's it. That proves it. There is
a demonic possession.
no
there.
evil in the world, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I look forward to doing this again. For now, I need to get out of here. Appreciate you hanging out with me. Appreciate everybody that was watching, hanging out with me. There was a link at the top of the chats for anybody that wanted to hop in, but no one did. But maybe next time, now that you guys know that that's an option. But for now, we're going to get out of here. Again,
Thanks for having me on, dude.
Yep. Thanks for hanging out with me and talking. We'll do it again, I hope.
For sure.
So everybody else, enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you.